One of my favorite things about you, actually, that I didn't know is what you're not famous for, actually, which is all these other businesses that you started. And a lot of them, you didn't even have a lot of money. Some of them, maybe you have money today, but you don't use money as like the main driver for growth. No. So I wanted to ask you, for somebody listening today who wants to start a business, but thinks, I don't have the cash to do it, I don't have the credentials to do it, what would you tell that person?
I mean, first thing I would say is I often think a startup having money is like a detriment. Yeah, like I never have raised money in any business I've started. And I've always felt like if you can bootstrap it and prove and get customers and make it work, well, then you have, a better chance of success. But I mean, the entire company was started with $3,000. My laundry business I started for $500. My online driver's ed company that I started maybe was, I don't know, $1,500. So like I've never actually the one business that I started that didn't work, I spent a couple $1 million starting it. Now that I think about it, yeah, I started a habit formation company called Made For with a good friend of mine, Navy SEAL, amazing. We had Andrew Huberman as one of our advisors. Like it was locked and loaded, and I put $3.5 million in it. Zero today. Yeah.
I love that because we bootstrap all of our companies.
Yeah.
And I kind of think the same thing. It's like if you put a bunch of fuel on a fire that's going the wrong direction, it's not very good.
Yeah.
Were there things that you believed back then that now, through multiple exits, selling a business for 50% at a 600 mil valuation, multiple businesses you started, that you're like, that was such a lie that they told me starting out in business, and now I know this to be the truth?
I think one of the things is that I don't think that having experience in an industry makes you more likely to have success. Because when you have experience, you kind of know the rules, so you don't have like the courage to break them. And you're limited. You already start with a set of beliefs that are limiting the innovation that you would have. Like I started, a cable television at work, no experience in that. Driver's ed company, zero experience in that. Tom's obviously had never made a pair of shoes before. I was down in Argentina, enough. I mean, now like I've never made bracelets and accessories. Like, so I actually think that's one of the biggest lies we're told is small businesses or entrepreneurs, is that you need to have experience. And then the second thing I learned, which I learned very much the hard way at Tom's, is that once you grow and you get to a certain size, you need experts. That's the biggest bunch of bullshit ever. I mean, literally, like the number of people that I brought into Tom's later, like once we were like a couple $100 million business, that quote had like big company expertise, did not help. If anything, it affected the culture in a negative way, caused more complexity. They want to bring their own systems in, their own teams. It created like way more overhead than we ever needed. So you don't need a lot of experience to start. And if anything, having experience might limit your innovative thinking. And then if you are lucky enough to build something that really starts scaling, when they start telling you like, oh, you need to bring in this expertise, I don't think it's true. And I think my sister's a great example of that. My sister, runs Aviator Nation, and, she owns 100% of the company, has never brought in, quote, the experts. And she and a small group of really passionate people built an incredible brand.
Yeah. What did your parents feed you guys? Why are you both so successful? That's so crazy. I mean,
and my brother too. My brother has, a lot of people know, my brother has this amazing online golf company called My Golf Club. And basically it allows people to get by far the lowest prices of any golf equipment on the internet. And it's through a membership model. And so he hasn't been as like well known in the media, but he's also crushing it.
What do you attribute that to? Like, what is it, parenting or genetics?
Yeah, I think our parents were like always just like, if you can believe it, just go do it. Like we didn't have any fear growing up of failure. And I think maybe because, we grew up, my dad was a doctor, my mom was an author. She did very well. He did well. Like we had a nice safety net. So a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people, don't have the luxury of just going for it. But also, I just think from a psychological perspective, our parents are always instilling confidence in us and always, encouraging us to like really go for what we believe in.
Can you remember a moment where like it really made you who you are as a kid because of what your parents did? Like, were there moments where you...
my mom basically put my dad through medical school. And then years later, I think I was 15 at the time. My sister was like 11. My brother was like 7. She decided she wanted to write a cookbook. And she was like, you know what? I have this idea for this cookbook. I think it'll help a lot of people lose weight. It's about cutting the fat out. It's good for your heart. This whole thing. She had, didn't go to college, had no experience writing books. Like my dad bought her a word processor at Walmart, and she wrote this book, and it became the #1 best-selling cookbook in America for 3 years. And she made millions of dollars.
So it's like, just do things.
Yeah, just do things. Just like if you have an idea, just try it. And so I think that really created that entrepreneurial spirit in my brother and my sister and I.
Yeah. And you've told me, even just our short time hanging out here, a bunch of stories about how you get people to get excited about a product or business without having a bunch of cash, which I love.
Yes.
So I want to talk about, you were talking about 2 companies you're interested in right now. And one of them, you're like, how we're going to get everybody into this. And then you told me your strategy. Will you tell them the strategy for the chair company?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the best things to do for a company is to try to find a way to be integrated into natural conversations. And it's also it's also this thing that like Seth Godin, the great marketing genius who I love, he writes about the purple cow. And the purple cow is, it's like if you're driving down the highway and you're looking at cows and then you see a purple one, you're going to stop, you're going to take a picture of it, you're going to tell everyone. So it's got to be remarkable. So first off, when you're starting a business, if the more your product itself can be remarkable, but then it's like, how do we naturally integrate it into where conversations are already happening? So this chair company is called the Pivot Chair, PVOT. Okay. So Pivot Chair, these guys are engineers from Nike. They're there for like 30 years, and they realized that sitting is the new smoking. We were way too sedentary. And so they developed a chair that it's the only chair in the world, and they have all these patents on it, that literally has 2 axis points. So it moves this way and it moves this way. And so when you sit in the pivot chair, if you're not prepared, you'll fall over. But if you're prepared and you engage your core a little bit, all the pressure goes out of your lower back. And it's like the most amazing experience ever. You can sit in it all day. It's not like it makes you sore, but it engages you enough that it's the equivalent of thousands of steps. And everyone's looking to count steps, right? And so what my idea to them was I was like, guys, because we're getting ready to do an investment round, the company launches in July. And I said, I think the only people we have invest in this next round are podcast hosts, because they sit in a chair a big part of the day, and then their guests sit in the chair. And so rather than them have to do an ad about it, just have the guests sit there. And for the first 5 minutes of every conversation, it's going to be, what the fuck am I sitting in? And then naturally you're going to talk about why this is so good for us. And so that's an example of taking something that might be hard to explain. And that's when you need lots of money for marketing and advertising, and just letting someone experience it in an environment that's naturally going to get people talking about it. Yeah. And so we have no marketing budget for that company. We don't need it, because it's just, if people sit in it, they want one.
How do you come up with ideas like this that don't take money, but just creativity? Do you have a creative process?
I think the creative process is, I just love people. I love talking to people. I love meeting strangers. I love asking people what you think. I love playing pranks on people. Just anything to do with people. And I feel like the more I'm around people, the more ideas get generated. What doesn't work for me is sitting in an office trying to figure it out, or having endless Zoom calls, because everyone's posturing, whatever. It's actually let's just get out there and mess with it. For instance, when I launched the Enough bracelet, what I did was I just started giving them to people. And saying, look, I really struggled with not feeling enough and for many years. And this has been a daily reminder for me. And I'd just love for you to have one and just see what happens. Or ask people who in your life helps you really feel enough. And they start opening up. My mom. Okay, here's one for you, and go give one to your mom. So and then we had all these ideas about that. And then that leads to, well, what if every person that receives one now has a little code on the packaging where they can scan it and send one to someone else?
Oh, that's cool.
So what a great marketing idea, right? Everyone that wears a bracelet is also a giver of a bracelet, and now it just goes on forever. But that wouldn't have come had I not been on the street, passing out bracelets, talking to people.
It's such a good point, because I think in this age of AI, everybody's really worried about their job and what's going to happen. And will somebody take this away from me?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think lasts is something you talk about a lot, which is really taste and creativity. right?
Yes.
And so like, you're obviously a guy with taste. You're like cool dressed. Yeah. You got all this stuff. Tom's was like, one of the first cool shoe companies I remember.
Thank you.
And so I guess my question for you there is like, does everybody have taste? Can you develop taste as an entrepreneur? Can you hire people with taste?
I definitely think you can hire people with taste. Like, I feel like when I'm meeting with someone, I kind of know if they've got it or they don't.
How can you tell?
Just their personal style choices, their attention to details, their Instagram. I mean, as silly as that sounds, like even to that to some degree, I mean, it's gotten a little bit harder because everyone's so hyper focused and everyone kind of follows what everyone else is doing. But originally, early day Instagram, like back when like I was running Tom's, 10 plus years ago, Instagram was a great way to see, like when we were hiring people, like, cause it's interesting. Like they say, like, if you really want to know someone, look at their camera roll. It's like, what are they actually taking pictures of? And if they're taking pictures of like cool architecture or like a really cool restaurant or whatever, even if they're not posting it, it's like, that's how you can kind of see what are someone thinking about, And I think a lot of taste is also about curiosity. Like taste, I don't necessarily think, actually, I would change this. I care more about someone having a sense of style than taste. And I don't care if it's my style or not.
Yeah.
Like they could be hardcore cowboy. Great. But if they lean into it and like that's them, I respect that, or they're really into, vintage cameras and like that's their thing. And they've got this camera and they tell you exactly about it and why they had this leather strap and what this viewfinder does. Like that's a sense of style. Whereas taste can be a little bit kind of like following whatever's cool in the moment. But I'm more interested in style because that tells me independent thinking. That tells me curiosity. That tells me confidence that they don't care if everyone else has their style, So yeah, I think that's something that's a little bit more interesting to look at when you're looking to hire someone. Because if someone has a specific sense of style, I think that can be applied to other styles. So like, if they're very specific in their personal style, then they can figure out like what is the right style of how we want to, merchandise or stack these bracelets.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's funny. I was actually talking to David, my podcast producer, because I was like, I gotta get a little bit more swag. Like I was like too serious, because I'm ex-finance, and he is known for, hopefully I can say this publicly, sometimes you'll paint your nails. Now the internet knows.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And
I painted my nails before.
See, I was like, David, I don't know about that. I was like, I don't know if that's and he was like, listen, bud, you gotta get cool. You gotta get on my level.
I painted the reason I did it is for years I was trying to stop biting my fingernails.
Okay, that's reasonable.
And so I thought if I paint them pink and green and all these random colors, then it like brings like a conscious attention to them. And if I have attention to them, I'm not going to want to hurt them.
Yeah. Did it work?
That didn't really work as well. but it did make my kids think I was like super embarrassing, which ultimately that's why I stopped doing it, because my daughter thought it was cool when she was like 4 and 5 and we went to get manicures. Now that she's 8, it's like if I painted nails, I'm not invited to any school assemblies.
We're talking about all these incredible things you do with business and these big businesses you've started, but there are a bunch of businesses nobody, I don't think, knows that you started. And so I want to talk about them in a couple different ways. One, I want to talk about Easy Laundry, which you hit on.
First business.
Yeah. Tell me about the business. How much money did you start it with and what happened?
$500. I I tore my Achilles tendon.
Oof.
I was a tennis player in college. I was on crutches. So all of a sudden, I couldn't carry my laundry to the laundry facility, which is in the bottom of the dormitory. So my laundry is piling up. I can't carry them down. My roommate's kind of giving me a hard time. We go home for Thanksgiving. His dad was an entrepreneur. I didn't know what the word entrepreneur was at this point, right? Yeah. My dad's a doctor. My grandfather's a doctor. My uncle's a doctor. My aunt's a nurse. Like my whole family's medical. And his dad, we were talking about the fact that I couldn't do my laundry. And he said, well, you should just have someone, come and pick it up. And I was like, I looked in the yellow pages, and this is how old I am, right? So I looked in the yellow pages.
Which, by the way, was a directory of listings like the internet back in the day. Yeah. Remember that?
For anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's basically, imagine if Google was printed.
But literally.
But local. Yeah, local. So anyways, I told him, I was like, I looked in the yellow pages. There's no fucking people to pick up my laundry. No one will do it. He's like, that sounds like a business opportunity. I'm like, a what? He's like, 'cause I'm a jock. I'm just a pure tennis player. That's all I do. And he's like, I think you guys should start a laundry business.
Oh.
And I was like, he's like, yeah, people would. I went to a school, SMU in Dallas, a lot of rich kids.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I think you charge a lot of money for this.
Great.
So literally we go back, we buy a FedEx truck for $500. An old, I mean, like literally doesn't work. We had to get the engine replaced, but like the shell of an old FedEx truck at like a junkyard, $500. We paint on the side EZ Laundry, red and blue, and we decide to start going around to fraternities and sororities and like pitching our services. Now, I've never even done my own laundry. I mean, I grew up very sheltered. My mom was like Miss Homemaker. So like, I'm like now figuring out how to like hire people to do laundry in the middle of the night at these places. And we just figured it out. It's amazing. I was like 17, 18 years old.
How'd you sell it?
It sucks doing your laundry. And so, you know, if you pay us this, we'll come pick it up every week. But here's the whole thing. And this is such, and I really hope if someone takes from this podcast, this is like such one of my first most important lessons of marketing. So we had this great service for, you know, I don't know how much it was, like say $20 a week. We'll do all your laundry for you. Okay. No one signs up. I mean, I don't think we had one customer. We went to fraternities, sororities. First off, the sororities are like, we're not giving you our panties, Jake. Like, this is the last thing we're doing. I mean, they all knew me.
They're like, not this way.
They're like, yeah, exactly. Not this way. You know? But so the sororities are like, this is just no way. And then the guys are like, what are you doing? Like, why are you playing golf or goofing around and drinking beer? Like, you're doing people's laundry. Like, I mean, just the kids who needed it weren't the customers. But who was a customer? Their parents. And the parents who were the most the customer was the incoming freshman. So we sold no laundry services for a semester. We go home a summer. We're thinking about basically quitting. It's just not working. And then we get a booth at orientation for the next year. In 3 days, we sold $100,000 worth of laundry services. Because the parents assumed when they got there, you buy the books, you sign up for the laundry, you get the meal plan. Boom. Everyone signed up. They even questioned the price. It was nuts. I dropped out of college and never went back because of this moment of my life.
Because of laundry.
Yeah. It was the craziest fucking thing. Like literally we just had the right pitch to the right customer. So sometimes you have the best idea. You're just selling the wrong person.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the kids, even though the kids are the ones who are benefiting from, I don't know why. They weren't the ones that were thinking they wanted to spend $20 on it when they only have so much money for beer or whatever. But their parents who are thinking, my kid has maybe never done their own laundry, or if they have, they don't do a great job. And I just bought the books for, you know, $900. Might as well spend $500 a semester to make sure they don't ruin their clothes. And boom, $100,000 in sales, 3 days. Next day, I call my dad, drop out of college, never go back.
So smart. Well, it's true because these days I feel like people overcomplicate marketing so much.
Yeah.
They're like the demographic, the avatar, the analysis.
Hate marketing.
Right.
People hate when I say that too. I just made some real enemies already. I know. I put this on Instagram the other day, and like 4 people that worked for me in marketing at Tom's reached out. I'm like, really? Really?
Like, I hate you
After
in
I helped
particular.
build a $600 million business, you hate marketing? Come on.
But it's true because
I
it's
just don't like the formal concept of marketing. I think when you're trying to like concoct a way to convince or manipulate someone to buy something, this is not what I'm about. Like, it's like, no, like we were giving something great. We just, once again, right place, right time, right? Goes back to the chair. Like the chair, if we get the right people to sit in it in an environment where a lot of people see their amazing kind of remarkable experience, it'll spread like wildfire.
What do you call that? Like, have you named that? Is that like trigger point marketing? Is it like, because I think that's a really useful framework for people to think, as opposed to, you know, I spend X percentage of my revenue on PPC with Zuckerberg, you know?
I think it's like showing the utility. I mean, even with the Enough bracelet, what's been really fun is, and I know I keep referencing it, and eventually we'll have to talk about it, but
100%.
but the thing is
Talk
like,
about it now.
It's really about the utility of like, so it's not even the fashion of it, or it's not even like that will raise a bunch of money for mental health charities. It's like, what does this actually do for someone? Mm-hmm. And so, so anyway, so I've just launched this, and it came from my own journey. After I sold Tom's, I got super depressed. And actually, even before I sold Tom's, I started to get depressed. But it got much worse when I sold it, because I thought, okay, once I sold it, I have all this money, all this freedom. I could live in the mountains. I'm going to be so happy. And then I wasn't. And then I was like, oh, shit. Now what do I do? Like, I built like what I think is the perfect company. I gave 100 million children shoes. Like, you know, I made more money than I ever could imagine.
You're friends with all the celebrities.
Everyone is, you know, every single thing. I mean, covers of every magazine for a while.
Yeah.
Like, and I felt empty. And I felt like I didn't really know what the second half of my life would be like. And the depression got worse and worse over 7 years, as we talked about. It got really, really bad a couple years ago. And in part of my healing journey, my therapist really helped me see that underneath all of it was this fear, this belief that I'm not enough. And it started when I was young, and I tried to feel enough by winning tennis matches. Then I tried to feel enough by starting businesses, then starting a business that would help people. But no matter what I did, no matter how much success I had, I just never felt that I was enough. And then after I did everything that the world tells you will make you feel enough, and I still didn't feel enough, that's when the depression, because it was like I didn't know where else to turn, which ultimately forced me to go inward and learn me and help me really realize and heal this idea that I'm enough, you're enough, we're all enough. But our culture lies to us all the time and tells us we're not enough. And if in social media is great, it's showing you and making you feel comparison to everyone else and how you're not enough. And so I decided after I started feeling better about a year ago that I wanted to help people feel enough. And my best friend told me to make a bracelet because he's like, I have all these tattoos, right? So they all have these different sayings. Like one says, be present. One says, do the work, speak the truth, enjoy the ride, carpe diem. And so he's like, instead of getting an I am enough tattoo, which I can see that's what you're getting ready to do. He's like, most people aren't going to get that tattoo. So why don't you create something that everyone can participate in? And you like bracelets. Why don't you make a bracelet? So went to India, got these bracelets. They're handmade by women in India. And the idea is it's just a daily reminder just to look down and kind of be like, I'm enough. I've always been enough. And like, fuck everyone that tells me that I'm not enough, because so much of that pressure is coming from all around us. And when you feel enough, you have so much peace because then you can actually just be and you can be present and you can be connected. And so the utility of this for me is, that it helps remind me. But the utility of this for someone else could be different. So for instance, 100% of the profits from Enough goes to mental health organizations. So a lot of people I know that are wearing the bracelet now are wearing it because just they want to raise money for mental health. The same way like the Live Strong bracelet raised money for cancer, right? They're like, no, I know someone that struggled. Maybe they lost someone to suicide. And they're like, I'm going to wear this in honor of them or to raise money. And that's why they wear it. But we're giving the utility. And so yes, I talk to my story and I share other people's enough stories, but also I show that like there's utility to this. And then the other thing, which at the end I'm going to give you one, is I'll show you right now, a little teaser, is we only sell them in pairs. Yeah. So when you buy one for yourself or you're given one, you get to wear the first one, but then you get to think, who in your life do you want to give the second one to? And so that's utility. So in terms of this, I would call it utility marketing. Like, I really think that's the thing is like, what utility does the Enough bracelet do for people besides raise money for charity? What utility does the pivot chair do for someone who's sitting all day, who might have back pain and who wants to live a more active life? What utility did the laundry business do? For those parents, the utility wasn't even the clean clothes. Utility was the peace of mind we gave them.
It's so true.
So think about utility.
Speaking of insane marketing ideas, did I ever tell you one of my favorites? I actually started my entire business with a newsletter. Literally sending emails built my entire business from 0 to 9 figures in 4 years, which is wild. So if I could recommend you one thing, it would be to start a newsletter. Write about anything in the world that you're curious about, your business, your customers, your ideas. And my friend Tim Ferriss is on Beehive, and he writes an email each Friday literally only about his 5 favorite things. I actually switched all of my newsletters to Beehive because I wanted to grow. And so they help me see where my audience comes from, who reads, how to send stupid, simple, but like beautiful emails. And then the growth tools are all totally built in, which works for me. So it recommends my newsletter in front of other people's audiences. So I'm finding readers I never even would have reached. Now, I'm obsessed with this team. The founder, Tyler, is literally the most relentless, mission-driven founder. Just like Blake, actually. He's the most relentless one I've ever worked with. It's fascinating to watch their team. They ship product and features and solve every issue that I have come up. In fact, These little wizards just spun up a new landing page for me in 2 days because my other one was terrible. So if you want to share your ideas with the world and make money on it, go to beehive.com/Codie and use code Codie30. You'll get 30% off 3 months. That's beehive.com/Codie for code Codie30. Also, drop your newsletters on Beehive when you start them in the comments. I want to see what you guys are writing. I'm looking for new ideas and brilliant people, and I'm hoping more people like you get into this game of newsletters because it very simply changed my entire life. Again, that's Beehive with 2 E's, 2 I's, no third E. What, you guys will figure this out. You'll remember Beehive, won't you?
You know what we should do? If somebody's listening right now and you have your business, but you don't have your utility marketing, why don't you comment for us? And I'll pick one and send it to you.
Deal.
And then we can give them a response.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be sick.
I love making videos.
Okay.
I tell my team all the time. It's like, you want to get a hold of someone? Just let me make a video. Like the other day, it's so funny. Our PR person was trying, when we were launching Enough, you know, he was like talking about how we want to launch it. And then Gayle King came up. And I was like, I was on the CBS show with Gayle King like a decade ago. Let me just make a video. And he's like, I'm like, trust me. Hey, Gayle, it's Blake. 10 years ago, you helped me launch Tom's. I'm launching Enough. I would love to come on the show. What do you think? Sure enough, we launched it with Gayle King. Yeah. Like sometimes the simplest thing is just like, just make the video, you know, ask the person to buy it. Like, I mean, just like it's simple things.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely don't ask enough. That is for sure. Yeah. And I think.
Can I say something to that?
I would love that.
No, because this is something that I feel so grateful for in my life right now. So when I was building Tom's, you talked about celebrities involved. We had a lot of celebrities, a lot of people supporting Tom's. But I felt so much pressure whenever I would go to a meeting or pitch someone like, will you wear our shoes or whatever, because my personal identity was tied to whether they said yes or no. So every rejection, which you're going to get a lot of rejections as an entrepreneur, was like personally painful. So it caused me stress, anxiety, all these things. Now, because I really do feel I'm enough, whether you like the bracelet, whether they like the bracelet, whether anyone likes the bracelet, I know that there's someone that this is really going to reach and is going to touch them, that now I have no problem asking anyone anything, because if they say no, it's no big deal, because it's not my personal identity as whether they like it or they say yes or whatever. And so that's been so fun for me, because now as I'm going out to different, Kid Cudi is one of my partners. I cold called him.
No big deal. That's wild.
Cold called him. I mean, literally, I, had a friend that knew his manager, and I had read about how he had really struggled with mental health, had suicidal ideation, like a lot of the same shit that I went through. And he just seemed like a real, like genuine guy. And so I talked to her, and she's like, I can get it in front of him. She got in front of him. A day later, he's like, hey, can I do a Zoom with Blake? All of a sudden, I'm Zooming with Kid Cudi. And then a week later, he's one of our founding partners of Enough.
Yeah, that's
But
wild.
if he would have said no, I wouldn't even thought 10 seconds about it. I would have been on to the next.
Well, you know what else is cool? I just learned this. Like, you can go to IMDb, sign up for their premium thing, and see every single famous person's agent.
Yeah,
and go
they
ping them.
hate this. Yes.
Yeah, they're going to like delete this part. Yeah, whatever. That's your job. That's why you get paid the 10 to 20%. Deal with it.
Exactly.
But I think the cool part is, and what I hope people take away is that even though you've had this huge career and you've built all these big businesses, these are actually little micro things that anybody in the world could do.
Oh.
Because, how many times do you think you've been rejected? Like your life?
Just with Enough. I'm not going to put some celebrities and athletes on
a blast
or their agents, but like you can think of any mental health any celebrity that has had a mental health challenge that has talked public about it, or any Olympic athlete that has a huge platform about mental health. I have cold called every single one of them now. And I only have 6 founding partners. There's hundreds of them. So that means that I'm still waiting to hear back from agents of hundreds of these people who say mental health is the most important thing in their life. And I'm saying, you can help us raise tens of millions of dollars by just wearing the damn bracelet. Nothing.
You want to call one of them out publicly? That is, but I think that's the game.
Yeah.
So I think.
You know what I'd like to do? I'm going to give you a list. And in the show notes, because I don't want to call them out, but I'm going to say, this is my top dream 30 people to be ambassadors of Enough. So if anyone is watching or knows their manager or knows them, Because all these people, it's not like I'm asking them to do something they're not already doing.
Yeah.
They're already saying, I really care about mental health. I got through this. I want to help other people. So in the show notes, I'm going to give you my list of my top 30. And hopefully someone can get us to one of them and we'll have a new founding partner.
I love that. That'll be huge. All right, let's go, YouTube. I like this. Okay, I also want to talk about you seem to have this, like, yeah, I don't care. You know, fuck all these people. Fuck whatever they think. But you have had numerous, like what my dad would call dark nights of the soul.
Yes.
Where you have like looked at the darkness in the face that I think all of us have felt, either just as a fucking human, but also as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be interesting. I don't know which one you want to share, but like, I'd love to hear about a night where you just head in hands didn't know what to do next, and then how you got through that for maybe the person that's listening right now with their head in their hands.
Yeah. I mean, I think the scariest thing for me was when I started getting depressed and then it got worse and I started trying to do all these external things to, build the dream house, moved my family to Costa Rica, got divorced, got remarried, got divorced again. Like I did a lot of things to mess up my life. And there was a time, and in doing that, I, had in this, I didn't have as close a connection with my kids, and I then went to a psychiatrist who told me I was bipolar, and then I got put on all these meds, and I mean, like, my journey went from bad to worse to worse to worse. To 2 years ago, I started waking up at 3 a.m, and I want to kill myself. And it was so fucking scary because I knew logically I would never do that to my kids. Like I knew but I couldn't stop thinking go to your boat that that you lived on when you started Tom's. That was your happy place. Do it there. They'll never find you. Someone else. I mean, that's the level of detail. And I was dealing with this every single day and I was keeping it. I was so ashamed because look, I have money. I have a wife at the time. I have kids. Who am I to want to leave this earth? And so I wasn't telling anyone. And the thing I did, the reason I'm bringing this up is it's the most important thing anyone can do who is suffering is tell your friends. Just there's never judgment. I think mental health has had a lot of stigma. I think it's getting less and less, but just find at least one person today to be it's this bad, and don't hold anything back. Literally be this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm planning. Because I believe what happens with people who become suicidal, or at least for me, my experience and others I've talked to and some that I've lost, is that it's the brain's broken. I mean, literally it's no different than a huge car accident, but it's invisible to everyone. And so think about it, how are you ever going to go to the hospital? How are you ever going to get the surgery? How are you ever going to get the PT if people don't see you mangled on the street? But if you're in that dark of a place, your brain is mangled. The neurons are not firing because it is not normal for us not to want to live, and especially me, I had tons of friends, all these reasons. But the most important thing I did, and the most important thing anyone can do, is just reach out for help. And yes, there's great crisis text signs, and there's all this mental health. Project Healthy Minds is one of my amazing partners with Enough. They have all these resources on their website. But I still think the most important thing is tell someone really close to you. I told my friends. I told my mom. Now, I hated that I was putting this on my mom, but I was also I just need to get through the next 6 months. And over time, they helped me, make some very important decisions in my life, help me get off all the pharmaceuticals, help me go to a treatment facility. I mean, my journey really was largely supported by the people that I shared. And also it's something about just talking about it, kind of takes the pressure away from it. It takes a little of the energy out of it.
So were you falsely diagnosed bipolar?
I think so. I mean, some people might. Who knows? Who knows? This is one of my favorite tattoos. So if you can see this one, this is my
who knows?
This is my partner in Tom's. Okay, right. And so for those who are just listening, I remember not everyone's watching this. Then we'll post a picture of this. But this is Alejo. He started Tom's with me. And
wearing a beret?
What's that?
Is he wearing a beret?
Well, all these Argentine gauchos wear this hat. It's like a gaucho.
Yeah.
But anyways, he, in a very funny way, I won't tell the whole story because it'll take another half an hour. But he basically spoke for 20 minutes with certainty about all the things in his life that he saw through this vision and this whole thing after some psychedelics. And then he looked at me and goes, but who knows?
Is he Argentinian?
Yeah.
That is a very Argentinian response.
And the thing is, the reason I tattooed it on my forearm is I think it's like it's literally like the Buddha talking to me. It was like so smart because I was like, we don't know. I don't know why I got depressed, but I know that it led to my next purpose. You know, I don't know why I was in this relationship, but it led to me having kids, you know, like who knows if it's good or bad, you know? And so for me, I don't know. I really look at life with just a marvel now, and to not be, and that's looking for people's journeys, like someone difficult in your life, or maybe someone's not treating you well or whatever. Like, who knows why?
Do you think it's hard to be in a relationship with a founder?
I think it's hard to be in a relationship with me.
Do you?
Maybe not so anymore. I think at different periods of my life it was. I mean, I think it was very hard to be in a relationship with me when I was building and growing Tom's, because it was my first love, you know? I mean, it really was. I mean, there's just, you know, we were traveling around the world. We were giving shoes to kids. I was getting the external validation that someone who never feels enough needed. So I was getting it constantly, you know? And so, you know, it's hard to be in a relationship because in a relationship, you mess up, you forget to take the garbage out, you're late for dinner. Like, you're not exactly getting external validation every time you come home. But if you're getting it outside as a founder, especially if you have success, it's really hard. But then the interesting thing now is I'm in an incredible relationship with an amazing woman, and you know, she's been part of the whole Enough, you know, building All Enough, and it's going great. So I think a lot of it is I wouldn't say it's a founder. I'd say maybe first-time founder, you know, I don't know. But I do think that there are sacrifices, but I think the person knows that going in, and they're either in for that ride or they're not. And that's why you got to make sure that you have the same vision for, you know, what you're doing. Because right now, helping people feel enough and raising money for mental health is, outside of my kids, like, the most important thing going on. And if I was with someone that didn't also share that passion, it probably wouldn't work out very well.
So now when you get into a relationship, do you set it up different? Like,
I think I just got I think God threw me a bone on this one. I mean,
you didn't
she's so
sit down
amazing.
and say,
Just like,
is she here? She listening?
She is here.
Oh, yeah.
Where is
Hopefully,
she?
no, you're doing this and she's not even listening. We'll have to send it to her later.
Yeah, that's how independent she is. She's just like, I'm doing my thing.
like,
You're doing your thing.
No, but I'm curious. Like, I think we have a lot of people who ask questions about relationships.
Yeah.
My husband and I.
No, I like it.
together.
I've watched some of your videos on Instagram about it. Yeah.
Well, I'm always like, I have no fucking idea. Talk to me when I'm 80.
Yeah,
Who knows, right?
Yeah,
I have
who
no idea.
knows?
Who knows? But I was curious, like, for entrepreneurs or somebody going into a relationship or trying to find their person.
Yeah.
Like, what would you fess up with somebody that you were in a relationship with now? What questions would you ask, you know, the person?
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
Well, I think the first thing is just being radically honest about what your priorities are. You know, the hard thing is, especially for someone who didn't feel enough, is that you kind of tell people what they want to hear so they'll love you, right? Versus like who you really are and what you're really about. And I think so I was kind of doomed, and I think my romantic partners were doomed because I never felt that I was enough. So in a sense, I was looking for them to tell me that I'm enough or to fill this hole that only I can fill, right? And so maybe I'm not leading with how important my business is or my purpose is because I want to say whatever it takes so that they're going to tell me I'm enough. Once I healed this, then I was able to, I think, attract a relationship and be really honest about, hey, my kids are my number one priority right now. I spend half my time with them. Next to that, I am on a mission to literally change the world's mental health. Like, I want to raise more money for mental health through Enough than anyone in the history of the world. Like, that's how big of a goal I have. And that's going to require me to go on a bunch of podcasts, to travel the world, to do speaking, to do all these things. And so most of our days are going to be living in a suitcase. And when I'm not in a suitcase, I want to surf. And I met a woman from Hawaii that surfs.
Oh, it's perfect.
Yeah. But it was like very clear, like when I'm not doing that, I really want to be surfing. And if you really like the idea of either surfing or being in a beach town and also traveling around the world on this crazy, enough ride, then great. And
That's such a good
but
point.
it was so much easier to be clear and honest, because I wasn't looking for that external validation anymore. I was getting it from myself. I was really believing I am enough, whether this woman is excited about being on this ride with me or not. And then therefore, I also attracted someone who they felt they were enough. And so they were able to be honest about what's important to them and what their needs are. And so I think it's hard. Being with a founder, being with an entrepreneur is not for everyone. But I also think it's really hard if you struggle with what I've struggled with and you're a founder to not really kind of sell a vision of a life that's really not what you want.
Yeah. Well,
That's also what causes depression. I mean, I'm convinced that one of the largest causes of depression is just not living in integrity with yourself. For so many years, I was living the life that I thought everyone else wanted me to live. And I wasn't living the life I wanted to live. And I think that's what catches up to us is we make all these little compromises. Largely, I did it so that I would receive love. And then you wake up and you're living a whole compromised life. And that you don't want to live. And that's where your soul is like, well, I'm going to get depressed and feel horrible until you make major decisions to get back in alignment. And then you get back in alignment and everything feels at peace again.
That's so true. I also think the universe doesn't give you things when you're unclear.
Yeah.
So, if you're like, no, I'll take whatever love I can get, if that's not actually what you mean,
Yeah.
then things go sideways.
Yeah.
And so it's so important. Even the way you set goals is really interesting to listen to. Because you're like, I wanted this woman that here are these things that are really important to me. And so they can decide one way or the other. And the way you set goals, my husband and I were talking the other day about how we were looking at like the greatest men of all time. If you look throughout history, and not
Like
one
the best looking?
Yeah, exactly.
You and your husband sitting around? I think he's hot.
Chris would not like that. He would not be interested in that. He's like you. He's an ex-Navy SEAL surfer.
Okay.
But so he's a dude's dude. But we were like, none of these men have actually achieved their goals fully. Like, if you go to Napoleon, if you look back, throughout history and you look at the biggest leaders in the world, they never achieved their goal. And yours is interesting because your goal was not, well, I want to sell 1 million bracelets. It's, I want to do more for mental health than anybody's ever done. I want to raise more money than ever. Do you think about goals a specific way? Is there like a right way or a wrong way to set goals for Blake?
I would definitely now. I'm glad you brought this up. So in the same sense, I'll say, I hope that these bracelets, every person on the planet wears one and we raise more money than anyone in the history of mental health. And if I just help one dad tell his teenage daughter that she's enough and read the poem that's in there to her, and that creates a tighter bond, we've had success. Like I literally, both goals, the dad-daughter one's more important. And that sounds like a great thing to say on a podcast or in a press thing or whatever, but I actually believe it. And the thing is already, we've only been doing this for like 2 weeks now. We've gotten the most incredible stories of, teenage girls giving it to each other, and it's like their new friendship bracelet. One had been really struggling with depression. She's like, hey, I want you to know I always got you and you are enough. Or I did hear about this dad and daughter. I heard about this son that gave it to his dad who said, I recognize that my dad's been depressed probably for like most of my adult life. He's a guy in his 30s. He's like, but I never knew how to ask him about it or talk to him. And I gave him the bracelet and it opened up a whole conversation. And now my dad's going to therapy. It's like, so when I say goals, I believe you can set goals that are, not mutually exclusive. Like I hope that this becomes huge, but if it doesn't, even if we touch a few people and create some interesting conversations and important healing, we've had success. I think there's been talk about like you set a goal and then you hold on to it very lightly. That's like, so you don't have the pressure of the goal. Like goals are great because I do believe what you put out into the universe is often what you get back. So if you don't, like you said, if you don't tell the universe what you want, how the hell are you going to get it? How's it going to give it to you? And if you put pressure of like, oh, I'm only going to feel this project was successful if we raise $100 million. Well, that's just a silly thing. But a lot of people do that. And a lot of founders do that. I mean, they set goals financially like, oh, I need to sell my company for 40 million or 50 million, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. But really, the ones that build the great businesses are 100% focused on something that is not necessarily measurable and more cultural.
big goals loosely held.
Yeah.
I love
Big
that.
goals loosely held.
So good. Also, I think, I think about that a lot with everything we do. And it's one of my favorite things about the businesses you've built before. But, we started the beginning of the podcast with me saying, I try to always think about like one person specifically who listens to this. Because if you think about it, you hold something precious in your hands when you're taking somebody's attention. That's their life. Right? That's lifespan. That's very precious. We don't get very many of those.
No.
And so if you imagine that we get millions of views a month across all the social channels, what a travesty if you and I don't give them something really worth spending their life on. Like that would hurt me a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I remember like we haven't had very many, but we had 2 podcasts we had to kill because I was like, I got stuff out of it. Thank you so much for coming. But like 1 million hours on this, it's not enough. It's not good enough. And so I think one other thing I want to talk about, which is like why we put up the tree. We were struggling beforehand with this. If you guys are watching us, you're like, why is there this giant tree that looks so beautiful behind us? And we're struggling with what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And then you told a story about wisdom and the Buddha that this reminded you of.
Yeah.
Will you tell us that story?
Yeah. So when I started Tom's, we grew beyond shoes into eyewear. We started selling sunglasses. And then we made a deal where we said, okay, if you buy a pair of our sunglasses, we'll pay for a cataract surgery to someone who's blind. We found out that the greatest cataract surgeons in the world are at this hospital in India, in Lundini. And we decided to go there and watch people get their eyesight back. I mean, it was literally one of the greatest experiences of my life. I mean, literally, I saw grandparents that had never seen their grandkids and see them for the first time because of a surgery that someone got because someone bought a pair of sunglasses on toms.com or something. I mean, it's crazy.
And how much does that surgery cost then?
It cost like $16 back then. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, so with 1 pair of shoes, you're able to cure eyesight.
Well, no, with eyewear. We just saw eyewear for $115.
That makes sense.
And $16 of it went to paying the surgery. So anyway, we go to Lundini, and they didn't tell me this until we got there, but also Lundini is the birthplace of the Buddha. And I looked over, and they're like, that's the tree. Now, whether that was a tree or not, who knows? But it was a tree that looks just like this. And I have a photo. I'll have to find it. Probably we can get it for the show, of me sitting underneath the tree. And I remember sitting there, and this was before I got depressed. This was like when Tom's was really taking off. I was in my flow. I was very connected to it for all the right reasons. I wasn't putting all the external pressure. And I just remember thinking, like, if this is it, if there's nothing else that happens with this idea, like, and I'd just seen some eye surgeries, I was like, that's all that matters. And I think that's like the way I want to live my life each day, each week, each month, going back to goals. Like at the end of the day, I kind of be like, okay, if that's the last one, I'm okay with it, And after the week or after the month, if that's it, I'm okay with it. Because that's, again, about living in alignment, And for me, having gone through such a scary time where for days I thought it was going to end very soon, I just feel like I have like this, they say new lease on life. Like I feel like I get this like second chance. And so that's why I'm spending all my time trying to help others not feel the way I felt and really connect people. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's all we have are our relationships and our own mental health. Because if we don't have mental health, it doesn't matter what physical health you have.
Yeah. So what do you do now? Like if you're feeling down, not even going all the way back, but if you're feeling down or you want to feel re-inspired, what do you turn to? What activities, what books, what readings, what quotes?
So, okay, this is silly, but one of the things I'm doing right now, and it's not silly, it's just I don't know how people respond to this. Okay?
I like this.
Yeah, I know you're going to like this. So, about 2 months ago, I started using AI therapy. Now, a lot of people ask ChatGPT mental health stuff, but there's this app called Sonia, Sonia.ai, and I met the founder at a mental health conference. And he was giving a presentation and explaining how it works and how it's, built on the LLMs, but they've basically taken, every therapist, every case study, every book ever written, put it in there and tried to design. And they call it emotional support. I think for legal reasons, they call it emotional support instead of AI therapy, but it's AI therapy. And so anyways, I was like, well, I've done a lot of therapy. I mean, if anyone's done therapy, I've done a lot of therapy. And one of the things that's really a bummer with therapy is if I have a panic attack, it doesn't happen at 2:00 on a Thursday or 2:00 on a Thursday. It happens at 4 fucking in the morning. And my therapist, I don't care how much money you have, no therapist is answering your call at 4:00 in the morning. And so I was like, wow, because I still struggle with anxiety. I still have these issues that come up, and especially with like launches of new things and, just am I always thinking, am I being good enough dad? And all these things. I wake up and I have stress about, oh my gosh, I didn't do this or that. And so now it's like, boom, it's right there at 4 a.m. And I don't have to do a whole hour session. I could do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
And it works?
It works unbelievable.
So what
I literally
happens
use it.
if you go, I'm panicking?
Yeah. So literally, you go in and you get to choose, like, I like to be talked to, like I like a therapist that is like really direct, or I like one that's more like light, or one this. And like you kind of fine tune. It takes like 10 minutes. And then, of course, as memory, so it never forgets anything. And you tell them what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And like I started off saying, like, this is my core wound. I never felt that I was enough. And so this is what I've done. This is what helped me. I had this mantra-based meditation. I do these things. And so I taught it that. And then I teach it, like, okay, one of my biggest sources of stress is this in my personal life, or this. And so it starts figuring all this out. And so then when I say I'm having a panic attack this morning, it knows what to check in about. Well, how did you sleep, for instance? One of the things that I have is like, I have a really high focus on sleep. And if I don't get good night's sleep, I can feel off. And it feels almost like if I ever have jet lag, it almost feels like depression. Like they kind of feel the same to me. And so it'll check in on my sleep. And then it'll be like, okay, well, like one of the things that we've recognized, like me and the therapist, it's so funny how it talks to you, is like that, you really have a trouble when things get too performative. So when you're having to out there sell or do too much press or too much of that, like that's the old Blake. And it will call it like we've talked enough where it's like, that's the Blake before all the growth. The new Blake likes connection. So are you having enough connection? And this week, what are you doing this week to have more connection?
That's great. So it doesn't just do what like ChatGPT does,
Oh,
which
no,
is
no.
like, you're great, you're perfect.
Yeah,
The other guy's
no.
a dick,
It's like
narcissist.
so specific. And then it will be, and then if I say, what I'm doing on Thursday this week to have more connection, I'm going to commit to, going on a run with my friend Pat. It'll send me a text message Thursday morning and say, hey, are you doing the run with Pat today?
Are we investing in this company? What's happening?
I want to. I mean, literally, right now, I literally just working with the founders. One of the things I'm also trying to do a lot now is mentor young entrepreneurs, especially if they're building businesses that can help people with their mental health. And so when I met these guys, I was like, hey, like, I don't know. First off, I just wanted to try it myself, and then it was working so well. And then they know the Tom story, and then I presented at the mental health conference, and they're like, "Hey, like, can you help us some?" And so I've been mentoring them. So I might invest. We'll see. But I mean, who knows where this is going? I don't even know if it's going to be legal. But right now, it's free at Sonia.ai, so you can do it right now. It's legal and it's free. I don't know if it will be forever, but yeah.
What about
But that's really helping me, and I guess the point I bring that up is I think what helps me the most is to have a dependable tool, and every tool that works for someone else. So one of my friends who's a recovering alcoholic, still deals with a lot of anxiety, starts to get, out of sorts, cold plunge, or cold shower. That's his tool. Just boom. He won't even like allow himself to call someone or talk to a therapist until he does that first. Right now, this Sonia thing is my tool. And, everyone has a tool. But I think that's the thing I would say is if someone's struggling, find a tool that can interrupt the rumination, the negative thinking, all that stuff. And so that's really a big tool for me. And then my other tool is my bracelet. I just have it. I wear it. I talk about it. I, give it out to people all the time. Like, tools are important.
It's a good point. It's a pattern interrupt.
Yeah, that's what we need. Because I think when we get out of sorts, when we start feeling negative thoughts, when we start ruminating, when we, it's all just a pattern. It's just our brain. Like, it's just like the brain is sending, for 40-something years, my brain told me I wasn't enough. And so what I did for 40 days is I did a mantra-based meditation, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, where I simply just said, I'm enough. I've always been enough. And I'd like laugh because it was so silly. And it felt stupid for the first couple of weeks. And then it started working. I started feeling it. But all I did was just change that pattern.
I love that. Yeah, I just had Tony Robbins on the podcast.
Oh, great. I love
met him.
We've met briefly once. We've never spent any time together. I want to have him on my podcast.
Oh, you should.
Because he talks a lot about feeling enough.
Oh, yeah. And he has one of, I think, like the most intense presences of anybody that I've met. And so I was at his house and we spent a good amount of time with him. And I remember like when he walked in the room, I was like, whoa, like that.
He's a big guy, right?
But we've had a lot of big, there's a lot of big guys. Yeah. But what really took me away is like that man is locked in. I was like, oh, fuck, he knows what's going on in here. He is like so locked in. Yeah. And then kind of similar to you, he was like, it was a lot of curiosity, which you seem to have the same thing. Yeah. Like, why are you this way? Why am I this way? And then once I figure it out, how do I put a tool in place to figure out the solution? Yeah. Which I think is really interesting. But he would be great for your podcast. Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, like now, it's so interesting to me that you could have ever been in this dark place because the way you come off is like so much joy to be, so much like, big, huge energy for life.
It's crazy.
And so I was wondering, like, today, what has you so excited? Obviously this, but like when you wake up in the morning, is it that you're going to go surf that day? Is it that you get to build again?
I think what has me most excited about life right now is service. It's just like I'm getting to help people again.
You've
like I know right now, this podcast, there's 1,000% chance that there's someone listening who's really in a tough place. There's also probably people that are feeling stuck, feeling uninspired, feeling insecure. Like I felt those things. I mean, for years, I didn't have one business idea for 7 years. For 2 years, I was a shell of myself. My friends say literally they look in my eyes and there was no one there. I mean, I couldn't even raise my voice to this octave for 2 years. And so because I felt that way and it was so scary and it was so recent, that I think I wake up now and I'm kind of like,
how do you engineer your life? Like, it almost seems like you've adventured your entire career. It's one of the things I struggle
Adventure?
with. Yeah. Like,
I do. I always make time for adventure.
But so in my business, we were just talking about this. And I'm like, man, when I'm in my little entrepreneurship grind, it's kind of all I do. Yeah. Like, I'm so deep in it. And I talk to a lot of people, it's the same. They're just like, they grind every single day. Yeah. And you seem like a type of person who has always integrated sort of the rest of life into it.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Two things. One is I really schedule joy. So I believe that like a lot of people hope for joy or awe or these big moments to come to them. Like I put it on the calendar the same way you have a board meeting. Like I'm like, for 1 week a month, I'm going surfing. Now you can't surf all day long. So I'll surf from 5 in the morning till 10, get my joy. I'll do Zoom calls from 10 to 4. And me and my lady will go for a walk on the beach. We'll have a nice dinner. We'll do, a sunset. And that's my day. Mm-hmm. And that is like as important as the press week in New York last week. And so I really, really schedule that. And that's, that's nice that I can go somewhere, say where there's surf or whatever. Not every person can do that. But what is that for you? Like, what is that joy? Is it taking guitar lessons? Is it learning something new on YouTube? Like, what is that thing? Because if you don't schedule that, then like, what's the purpose? What's the point? Because
do you do it every day too?
No, I wish. I mean, if I'm really, really like operating a 10 out of 10, then I'm like making sure I protect a couple hours, early in the morning to, usually it's physical activity or it's playing golf, like 9 holes at sunset, with my son or with my friends or whatever. Yeah. So,
but it's at least once a month. So it's like
once a month,
schedule joy.
I try to schedule a month. Now I always get a week. No, but I definitely get at least a 4 days. There's not a month that goes by that I don't have 4 days where I'm just like, see ya.
And do you always do something weird? Like going to India or like surf. It's not just like, it seems like
that's more my personality than I think what I would share. Like going back to how do we help the person who's listening to this and focusing on them. Like, yes, I do a lot of just crazy adventures because that's just always how I've been. Like, I've always been, racing cars or climbing mountains or, I like the adrenaline of those things. But also I think you can schedule this, if someone's just like, I love reading and I'm going to schedule 4 days where I go, it could be like you go camping. It could cost nothing. And I'm just going to sit and read the books that I've been wanting to read for 2 years, or I'm going to go and just like one thing I did that was, I guess it was a little bit out there, but very simple was I hiked the Camino Trail for a week with Alejo this summer. So we just walked for a week.
I'm into
We didn't
I'm
run.
a big walker.
Yeah, we just walked. We got up, walked, ate, walked. Like it was the most boring thing I've ever done and one of the most profound because my whole nervous system reset and I was able to process the depression and all the things I went through and the pain I caused others and the pain others caused me. And I was able to forgive them and forgive myself. And I was like, man, this is better than any therapy retreat I've ever been to. And all I did for a week was walk.
I love that.
Yeah. And so I think it could be, I did that in Spain, but I could have done that, in Marin where I live,
Yeah.
So I think that
Actually,
yeah.
I just looked up. This is so funny, but my hobby this year is literally more walking because I like thinking a lot while walking. Mm-hmm. But do you know that there are 52 trails in the U.S. where you can do more than a 7-day walk that are supposed to be seen as highly scenic?
Yeah.
And you can camp along them. So if you chat GPT it right now, anybody listening, totally free, maybe $12 to camp.
Yeah.
And then you can go for a walk.
Yeah.
Maybe we can start walking all around the country and having beautiful ideas while you do it. And not being sedentary like your chair.
Exactly.
So that we can get all our steps
Sitting
in.
is the new smoking.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Walking episode.
Here's
Bigdeal
the
podcast.
slogan I'm pitching. We're talking to the chair company. I'll see what you think
Okay.
as a business person. Really simple. Never still.
Oh, God, that's true. Plus, I'm into that. I don't like being still.
Yeah. So now when you're sitting, the other thing about the chair thing, not to make this all about that, but they're going to love this. This already got here. So they thought it was to help, with get people, not being still, help with the back pain, help with the, but what they found, like the biggest hack is people have ADHD. Because what happens, do you?
Totally.
So you know how like if you really focus on something, you kind of need to be doing something else.
Oh, totally.
You like to fidget, you like this, you doodle, you ring.
Mm-hmm.
So they've shown that you can really focus. Well, we've done all this research to show that by sitting in this chair, your body is just doing this kind of, you can barely see it, and it allows you to hyper focus on whatever you're doing. So
sold.
Yeah, you're getting one for sure.
I'm totally sold.
And hopefully all your guests will be sitting in one.
Okay, so I want to leave the person listening here that just needs to listen to Blake today, your parting words. So there's that person out there, you have something to imbue to them. What comes to you first? What do you want to leave the listener?
I just think that what I want to say is that it will pass. No matter what you're going through, no matter how hard it is, it will get better. It always does if you just hang on and you take the steps to do the things. So go out for the walk, reach out to a friend, journal for 30 seconds, not even 5 minutes, just 30 seconds of something that you're appreciative of. But no matter how hard it is, it will pass. I didn't think it was going to pass. I thought I was trapped. I thought I'd made too many mistakes. I had too much shame. And that's why I had such dark thoughts. But looking back now, I'm like, it was always going to pass. I just had to hold on. I just had to start doing one thing at a time. I just had McConaughey on my podcast. And he talks about one in a row. Just get one in a row today. And so that would be my advice is knowing or not even advice, just I want you to hear that it will pass and it will get better, but you got to do the work. You got to put it in.
Who would have thought? Least interesting thing about you is that you sold your company for $600 million. Least interesting. Thank you so much for being here today. I
got to give you a bracelet before we're done.
Oh, we're going to do it right now.
Absolutely.
I love this.
So here we go. So we take one out. This one's for you. And it says, so you got to make sure I do this right. Yep. So open your palm.
Okay.
Okay. And for those who are listening, I'm putting enough bracelets.
Matches my outfit today. I didn't even wear green on purpose.
And
I love this.
I'm going to read you something. Okay. So this is a little poem. Do you know the poet NQ?
Mm-mm.
So he's an amazing poet, friend of mine. And I said, how do I share this with someone besides just giving it to him? If I really want them to feel this, then what can we say? So here it is. So Codie, I see you, the you behind the you, not for anything you've done or anything you're going to do. I don't stop to say it enough, but I believe in you. And if you could see yourself from my view, you'd believe it too. That's why I'm giving you the gift that I'm receiving too. A message to remind you when you're lost or feeling blue. A mantra to repeat when times are tough. because no matter who we are always enough. It's a silent prayer I'm sending for the world's mental health. I wear the symbol for myself and now as a bond to someone else. It's a blessing and a gentle push to never give up, because no matter who you are enough.
Oh, so good. Beautiful. Also, why you're a marketing legend. Blake, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people go to find you?
Weareenough.co is the website for Enough. And then I'm on Instagram at Blake Mykoski, and the pivot chair, PVOT.
Yeah, we'll put all the links down below.
And the 30 people that I would love to be our ambassadors, I'm looking to your community to help me get to them.
I like it.
I love this idea.
And we'll ping somebody with your brilliant marketing ideas too and help them find that. Yes. What did we call it? We called it utility marketing.
Utility marketing.
We got a little trademark for Blake today.
Let's do 10 people.
Whoa.
Yeah, 10 people.
I love it.
10 people.
Okay.
Tell us what you need help with utility marketing. What are they going to comment?
So they're going to comment on YouTube. Basically, just tell us what your product is.
And then I'll just make them a video of my idea.
Oh, I love this idea. All right. You're the man. Blake,
okay, thank you.
This was so great.
We're in trouble. I think we're going extinct, honestly, as a species.
I've got Dr. Tina here, who is a naturopathic doctor trained both ways, holistically and traditional medicine. And so we get to learn from somebody who's walked the walk.
Eat more meat, lift weights, deadlift fix a lot of things.
Yeah, you had this quote that I loved, which is, when in doubt, deadlift. Need to make a big decision but feel unsure, deadlift. Need to process anger or frustration, deadlift.
This is non-negotiable if you want to age well. We have to move every day. We're primates. We're fancy mammals with opposable thumbs.
You also have some really interesting take on DLP-1s. Are they bad? Are they good?
Perceived. You can over carnivore yourself into insulin resistance.
Wow.
Yeah. Basically, it was like if your girlfriend's telling you to cut your hair off, she's not your friend.
I actually agree with it. I don't even need to see the science on that. Hey, and welcome back to the Bigdeal podcast. I'm your friend Cody, and I'm here today to talk about a thing we don't talk about enough. Like, where's the actual science around GLP-1s like Ozempic and eating carnivore, and what is right for you based on data, not influencer view count? Then this podcast is going to be for you. I've got Dr. Tina here, who is a fascinating human in many regards. First of all, because she is actually a practicing doctor. She's also a naturopathic doctor, trained both ways, holistically and traditional medicine. And so she understands the full gamut. She's also 51 years old. And so she talks a lot about what it means to be a woman and to be a woman through the ages. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it with Dr. Tina. You know what I wanted to start is basically one, I was laughing with Gabrielle Lyon because I'm like, how come doctors are hotter now than they've ever been? You, her, Andrew Huberman, amazing. And I think that's actually kind of how it should be, right? Like if people are healthy, it doesn't mean hot, like you have to look like Kim Kardashian, but like healthy and fit and talking to us about being healthy and fit, you should probably look the fucking part. Is that a crazy thing to say that like doctors should also practice what they preach?
I feel strongly about that. I feel like you have to walk the talk.
I think your story is really interesting too, because you weren't always so perfect. And so, maybe you could talk a little bit about the fact that like, hey, wherever you guys are, we see you, I see you because I was you. And now you're 51, you look great. And you're applying these practices in a way that's like, you can be a normal human too. So maybe talk to us about the pack-a-day situation.
Yeah, so we were talking off camera. I chain smoked for 10 years, pack-a-day from 14 to 24. Don't know why. Probably because I was, growing up in Oregon where it rains all the time and it's really depressing and dark. We drank a lot back then. That was like a big drinking culture. I don't think that today's young people are drinking nearly as much, but when I grew up, everybody was drinking, particularly in places where there was nothing else to do. And I wasn't so healthy and fit. I think as a child, I spent a lot of time doing gymnastics and sports. And so there was some muscle memory there. And then I spent a long swath of time just eating, I call myself I was a macaroni and cheeseitarian. I literally was just, I'm not going to eat meat. And then I ate just garbage, so I pretty much consumed garbage for a extensive period of time. And then I had my daughter who's going to be 25, in a few weeks. And I remember laying on the couch with a migraine, just feeling awful and looking at her, and she was a toddler and she was like, Mom, come play, Mommy, come play. And I remember thinking, I can't be a piece of shit mom. Like I can't lay here and be that mom, when I know better. And by then I had spent time working with my mentor, who was a phenomenal naturopathic physician. I knew better and I wasn't doing it. I was still eating like Pop-Tarts and I wasn't smoking or drinking then, but I just wasn't doing anything. And so then I spent a period of time kind of wafting around, not really sure how to implement. Started naturopathic college, was learning along the way what I was supposed to do even more so. And then I was coming upon 50 I'm sorry, 40. And I was like, God, I better train for menopause. Because when my mom hit menopause, it was a train wreck. She went from this beautiful, tiny little thing to just really having her metabolic health go sideways. And my mentor had always taught me that metabolic health was the crux of everything. Keep your waist circumference low, keep your muscle, like back in the 90s, he was telling me to get off the treadmill and start lifting weights.
Wow.
In the 90s.
That was not cool then.
No. And he told me to quit eating white foods, all white foods, meaning, starches, carbs, focus on protein. And so I had been around it. I knew better. I'd been around it for a long time. And finally I was like, I got to just walk the talk.
So you basically, you saw your mom go through menopause, and when you say metabolic health, basically what that means is she became quite overweight.
Yes. And then you end up in this pre-diabetic state, which is, they call it metabolic syndrome, which a lot of people are walking, the last stats. We have 2018 stats that were published in 2021 showing that close to, I think, 94% of US adults have cardiometabolic compromise. So it's this pre-diabetes state, this phase 1, if you will, stage 1, some people call it. And so back then they called it Syndrome X. It was brand new. Nobody had appreciated it. And so it was this conglomerate of symptoms and they didn't really know what to do with it. But you stay on that trajectory and you will end up with type 2 diabetes at some point. You just suddenly arrive and your numbers match on labs and your doctor's like, congratulations, you have type 2. Well, that damage has been happening for, 10, 15, 20 years sometimes.
Oh man. Yeah, I saw this thing the other day and it kind of made me giggle on the internet. It's like when you try to lose weight, you avoid sugar, carbs, seed oils, do 24-hour prolonged fasts, and go carnivore. When you want your dog to lose weight, you put less food in the bowl and you walk him more. So like, what is the answer? Should we just eat less and walk more? Or is it actually more complex than that for those of us today?
It's all of it. It's both. And this is where the calories in, calories out people want to fight with the insulin resistance people.
Right.
And it's both. And so the way that I like to think about it is we have certain metabolic pathways and they exist in a counterbalance. Not to get too nerdy, but most simplistically, we have this AMPK, this AMP kinase pathway, which helps get your mitochondria revving. It helps people feel better when they have their AMPK pathway revved up. It also, when too high, can become catabolic, meaning it starts to waste you. This is where I think high dose GLP-1 comes into being a problem. Is it revs the AMPK. On the other side, we have mTOR, and mTOR is like your muscle building. You rev that pathway through strength training and through eating more protein. And when that pathway is too high, and insulin resistance can actually push it pathologically. When that side's too high, you end up with modern diseases like cancer. So in my head, it's a balance. So we need to be doing a buffet of all the things.
God, it's so annoying. I think for people listening today, you're like, God, I have so many things that I need to do to change my life. I'm just trying to be a little bit fitter. I want to look a little bit sexier. I want to have a longer life or a healthier lifespan. But there's so much, and there's so much misinformation. Like I saw this comparison of the historical food pyramid versus a modern day food pyramid, and I'd be curious your take on it. Basically, the inverted pyramid, which they're calling like the low carb food pyramid, kind of sounds like what your doctor friend was talking to you about, is like at the top. So the least amount, we have those high in carbohydrates, starchy vegetables, nuts and seeds, low sugar fruits. And then in the middle, we should be doing a lot of low carb fruits and vegetables. And then at the bottom, we should be doing the most whole fat, dairy and proteins, fats and oils, etc. Is that right versus the inverse of what we used to be? And is it too simplistic to say that that is right for everybody?
I think it's too simplistic to say. I think everybody's a little bit different. You can over carnivore yourself into insulin resistance. resistance. High levels of arachidonic acid can send you into insulin resistance as well. So the way that I like to think about it is just eat real food. Get enough protein. What does that mean? We could go high protein, we could go lower protein. I think it depends on the individual. I think it depends on their age. I think it depends on their goals, how active they are, how fit they are. But generally speaking, a gram of protein per pound of body weight is a great goal. So for women our size, I'm thinking 90 to 120 grams is a minimum goal, and then more if you're, pregnant or you're lifting a lot of weight. Make sure you get a variety of colors in your diet. And then as we get older, understand that we become more insulin resistant, period. As we age as women and we lose our estrogen stores, we become more insulin resistant, period. And the more muscle mass we lose with age and atrophy, because that's just a normal part of aging as we start to atrophy everywhere, that we will become more insulin resistant. So in my head, the goal is always to keep insulin sensitivity going, whatever that looks like. So I've carnivored myself into insulin resistance. Wow. So this is the people who say, I got fatter on carnivore. What's happening? They're inducing an insulin resistance. The women who show up in my clinic, and I've been treating them since they were your age, and then all of a sudden they show up and they're closer to my age, and they're like, I don't know what happened. This like 15 to 20 pounds just showed up. I haven't changed anything. That's low key insulin resistance. And it may not even be showing up on labs yet. It can be happening at a cellular level, and the symptomology is what I go off of. I don't care what their labs say. If they're exhibiting signs of insulin resistance, i.e. random weight gain that doesn't make sense. It's not adding up. So there's no reason to make it crazy. We have to move every day. We're human. We're primates. We're fancy mammals with opposable thumbs. Yep. We are a lever system. We are an upright lever system. We are designed to pick up heavy shit and put it down. We are designed to ambulate and walk. So it doesn't need to be crazy. I don't know. We get so off track, and I think the internet's very polarizing, and I think people create content that's clickbaity so people will follow, but it becomes very confusing for the average person. And I have been singing the same song for decades, which is eat more meat, lift weights. Deadlifts fix a lot of things, especially, if you can get yourself heavy. And what is heavy? That is really up to the individual. It's different. We probably have a different version of heavy, right?
Yours is bigger than mine.
No, I'm sure you lift way more than me. I think that sleep is critical, and we as a society I think it's coming around, but my generation, it was cool to not sleep. It was like the less sleep you could get by on, the cooler you were,
Totally.
My generation, Gen X, was raised up on that heroin chic skinny look. So it was like the skinnier you could be. So we all pretty much like wasted ourselves away into sarcopenia, walked into our middle age with no muscle, and then wondering why my age
What
cohort.
is sarcopenia?
It's just this, it's muscle wasting. It's poverty of the flesh. That's literally the translation, is poverty of the flesh. So as we age and we become more inflamed through the aging process, we literally start to waste. And then its sister is cachexia, and that is an inflammatory induced, like when people are sick with cancer, or they've come through a terrible viral illness. You've seen people come out of COVID wasted away. That's cachexia. And once those processes start, it's almost like a feed forward mechanism. So you've heard, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon talk about how the older you get, the more protein you need, the more you need to be focusing on this, which seems unfair. I'm 50 and I'm like, dude, I just want to chill. I've been fighting my body my whole life.
Yep.
So the key is to not fight the body. Chill the F out, because people I think women in particular, they think, okay, Orange Theory, CrossFit, I'm going to hit it hard. As we get into menopause, that becomes less, the success rate goes down there.
Wow.
We need stimulation, but I really think in many cases we need to find what works for our bodies and not drive that cortisol. I think the intensity level as we get older needs to be modulated more for the individual.
So as we get older, or as you get older as a woman, you should do less Orange Theory, by and large, less intense cardio and more weightlifting.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And I like strength training because you can gauge it for the individual. You can take longer breaks between sets.
Yeah.
You can increase the weight. You can increase the reps. You can play with the tension, time under tension. You can pace the move so that we're just doing, really slow eccentric and then more explosive concentric, like whatever it takes. I think it can be modulated much more for the individual, depending on where they're at, what their orthopedic faults are, how old they are,
That's actually really helpful because, like, my husband, for instance, is a former Navy SEAL. So he's a psychopath, like Gabrielle's husband. And he will always say intensity, intensity, intensity. But for instance, for many times, I already have a lot of stress at work.
Yes.
And I run like at a pretty high stress level as is. And so when I'm in the gym, I like lifting heavy, but I don't love that butterfly in the chest,
Yep.
heavy sprint feeling. And, he would say historically, well, that's what you have to do if you want to get results. And it's interesting because my body's kind of been like, nah, I don't think that's not it for me anymore. But there's actually science that backs that you don't have to go into the gym as you get older and heavy breathe, psychopath, sweating everywhere to have longevity success as a woman.
I don't I don't think it's necessary. And I think people will argue across the board. I do think it's important, Dr. Stacy Sims talks about making sure that you get certain levels of intensity in increments. She calls it sprint interval training. So
Mhm.
you're doing these short increments of high intensity and then you're resting. And I always say rest as long as you need. That might be 3 to
Mm.
5 minutes. It doesn't have to be these short intervals of rest either. And make sure you completely get back to having easy breathing and then go hit it again. So I might do that on the rower. I love the Airdyne bike, the assault bike. I will just hit it until I count to about 20 to 30 before I feel my whole system shaking.
Mhm.
And then I just get off and wander around the gym for a while and, go do something else. Men are different than women, and women at your age are different than women in menopause. And so I find when I crank up the intensity too high, I blow up. I just get fatter everywhere. And it's cortisol. It's because I have enough cortisol. My life is also quite stressful. And I end up in this sort of like chronic cortisol state where I'm puffy and bloated, but cortisol is
Right.
also catabolic. Cortisol chews up your tissues. So if we're cranking cortisol in the gym, but we're trying to gain muscle, you can see where intensity needs to be dialed in for the individual. And that's going to be different for all of us. So I can't work out like Gabrielle.
Yeah.
If I tried, I would die. I
Yeah,
feel like
me
I'm
too.
dying and it's not helpful. And my sleep gets messed up and
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to faint when I stand up from a squatted position. Like my adrenals are like, no, do not
So
do this to us.
how do you know when a workout is right for you or not? How does a woman listening to this go, okay, I need to work out more and more intensely. I need to do less. How do you listen to your body correctly? What's the way to know?
I think you should feel better when you leave the gym
Mm.
than you came in. You should feel invigorated. You should feel like you got a boost. You should feel like it's going to carry you through your day. You should feel like your mood's improved. You should not feel like you want to make a sweat angel on the floor and stay there. And you should not have to go lie down on the couch. Sometimes I do have to go sit in the car for a few minutes after a workout and just kind of like recalibrate my nervous system. And then the next day you should feel better, not worse. You might be a little sore, but you shouldn't feel like, God, I feel like I got hit with a truck. That's your adrenals saying, no, do not do
Interesting.
this. So I think that the intensity level needs to be dialed for the individual. It's really, really important. And we need to consider the implications of cortisol because if you're a middle-aged woman, you're stressed out of your mind, you're insulin resistant by nature because your hormones are waning. Now you're trying to do these long intermittent fasts. You're trying to do hardcore intensity training because you're like, I got to keep up. I could do it 10 years ago. And these women come in, they're hitting a wall and they are literally blowing up. Usually right here is the indication. So
So, your midsection is an indication of I am actually working out incorrectly and eating incorrectly. And it's not just that I should just walk more and eat less.
yes. The walking's great. Always. I think it's nice and calm. Walking it keeps your sense. We want to hone the central nervous system. And the way I think about the central nervous system is we want to hit it to get a hormetic impact, meaning hormesis is, for the listeners, is just this concept of strategic intervals of stress. And then the key to hormetic stress is to rest the organism after and
Mm,
refeed. So
mm.
we want to hit it. So you might leave like maybe you PR'd your deadlift that day and you know what that feels like. So have you ever cried after?
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
it's not because you're happy. It's because your nervous system just went, right?
I thought I was happy, but
Well,
now,
you are, but
yeah,
like you're crying and you're like,
yeah,
I don't know what's happening right now. And
right.
that's your nervous system going, which is great if you spend the next 2 days chilling, maybe doing, and that doesn't mean laying on, sitting your ass on the couch all day, but you're doing some gentle movement. You might choose yoga, you might choose walking, you might choose swimming, whatever. Maybe you go for a hike with your husband or whatever, and your cute dog. And then you refeed.
Yeah.
And then that hormetic hit was therapeutic. It wasn't catabolic.
I just think that's so beautiful because, if you're listening out there and you feel like everybody's always telling you to do more and to keep going and you're not enough. And, yes, you should be rich and you should be happily married and you should have 2 kids and you should have great girlfriends. You should also have a six pack.
Right.
You just need to know that that's ridiculous. And it's okay to not have all of that at once. In fact, that would be ridiculous to have all of that at once. And also, I think it's so liberating to know, yeah, we need to move more, probably. Yeah, we need to eat a little bit less, maybe a tiny bit less drinking, but also there's some real things out there where it's not always just do more.
And you
Could
got to
actually be do
live.
less. Yeah.
Like a drink might actually, and I'm not like saying go drink, but a glass of wine to celebrate might actually lower your cortisol and allow you to have a happier homeostasis inside your body. Think of it that way. We're always trying to go towards homeostasis. So if you're trying to work out with your husband and you're trying to keep pace and you're like, I don't feel right, then listen to that. Go do something else. Maybe
Yeah.
you just go, you go lift slow and heavy and you get a couple sets in and you're like, I'm good. My husband the other day was watching me work out and he came over. He's like, you're done. Like he could just see it. I started shaking and my form was falling apart. And he's like, you're done. You've had a stressful week. We're done. We're leaving. So I think that's important.
I like this husband of yours.
He's downstairs.
Oh, is
He's
he?
probably playing with
I
your
can't
dog.
wait to meet him. I brought my husband to work today too.
Oh,
good. We could have our husbands and the doggo together.
He's a good old farmer. And I want to add too, I think this is important. You asked me like, how do I look good at 51? I do think there's something to, and you mentioned 6-pack. I think there's something as women age, and I know that other trainers will back me up on this. As women hit middle age, we look better with a little bit of fat. We just keep, like I had a woman in her 60s, an influencer, beautiful, very fit woman. She said, how does your face look great? And I'm like, well, I don't think my face looks that great, but thank you. But I'm like, it's fat. Like it's actually there still. Like
Yeah.
I think leaning out to the point of that, because then you have to fill it with something.
Yeah.
And that starts getting weird.
And there's a lot of studies that also back that men actually like women who have a little bit of fat on them because it leads to higher predictability for fertility, right? Not too much.
Right.
But is that true? I've heard that.
Yes. And also our estrogen stores are in our fat. So when we lose ovarian function, it is our fat cells that make the estrogen. And they make a form called estrone, which I don't think is as nearly as good as the estradiol that our ovaries make when we're younger, but that is this is my little estrogen depot, my little pooch. I mean, I would love to have my 6-pack abs back again, but also every time I lose too much weight, my hormones go in the toilet. And I've had patients who got tummy tucks and they show up and they're batshit crazy. And they're like, what's wrong with me? I'm like, you literally just sucked out all your fat, which was all of your hormonal depot. So, and of course, I'm supplementing hormones as I age, but your fat stores are sort of your lifeline to a lot of things. And so keeping that super shredded look as a woman, I don't think it's great for longevity.
I cannot wait to tell my husband that this is just my anti-crazy.
It is.
Exactly.
It is.
Well, he's actually always the one that's like, you need to chill on losing weight. Well, I have a question about that though. So I'm getting older, and I absolutely do feel, whether it's true or not, that my metabolism is slowing down. Is that real? Are there ways around it? Can we keep our metabolism as we age?
Supposedly the metabolism is not slowing. That's what data shows, which I'm in the same boat. What I think is happening is we're having hormonal shifts. And like I said, the estrogen shifts will cause the insulin to shift because insulin's a hormone at the end of the day. And then we're having, I think, well, no, I don't think, I know as our estrogen starts to shift, our tolerance to stress goes down. So women do not tolerate stress the way men do. Women do not tolerate lack of sleep the way men do. Women do not tolerate, consistent intensity the way men do. And so as our estrogen is waning, that gets worse and worse and worse and harder to deal with. And cortisol will make you put fat on in weird places. And then I think thirdly, we're losing muscle mass. And so this is why the lifting is non-negotiable. Like it's just non-negotiable. I was telling people a long time ago on the internet to eat meat and deadlift when all the influencers were like, just do yoga and go vegan. And it was not popular. And I'm so glad that, folks like Dr. Gabrielle have finally gotten the message out that women are in Dr. Stacey Sims. It's like, this is non-negotiable if you want to age well. And it's not about looking hot. It's about not breaking a hip.
That is what, yeah, you had this quote that I loved, which is, when in doubt, deadlift. Need to make a big decision, but feel unsure, deadlift. Need to process anger or frustration, deadlift. Want to find calm zen on a chaotic day, deadlift. Deadlifts fix nearly everything and always bring calm clarity. Why do you like deadlifts so much?
I think it's because it hits that central nervous system hard enough that you get that whomp. And this is where lifting light doesn't give it to you. So I understand that I have some pretty serious spinal orthopedic issues, and I cannot deadlift the way I used to under the kind of weight that I used to. So I cannot get that whomp the same way, but it's not the same whomp that you get from, orange theorying yourself into exhaustion. There's just something about a heavy central nervous system hit. And then in the Strong First community, which is like the Russian KGB kettlebell community, they always say leave one in the tank, right? And so you get that whomp, but you leave one in the tank and you come out with superpowers. I think
Yeah.
I stole that from Tim Ferriss. I think it was Tim Ferriss I heard a long time ago say, when you need to make a big decision, or I think he was counseling some CEOs and that he was telling their team, like, when you need to make a big decision, go deadlift and then make the decision. So that's my rule. Like, if I have to make a big decision about something, I will lift and then I will sleep before I decide anything. And then when I wake up, it's usually the same decision I came to before that.
Yeah.
But I promise myself that I will exhaust my nervous energy, I will sleep, and then I will wake up and I will decide.
And that's how you have better decision making.
I think so.
3 steps. I like that. You have talked about the science surrounding who you surround yourself with. What happens depending on the people that you choose to spend time with? Does that matter?
I think so. I think it does. And the data is showing that our microbiomes are contagious. And well, going back many years, I had my daughter. I was just married to like a complete loser, and I had a child with him. And I don't mean to speak disparagingly of him, but many years later, the daughter has concluded as well. That was not a good decision, but I got my beautiful daughter on this planet because of it. So I think 5 months postpartum. I was super depressed. I went to visit my buddy and like two of my best friends in Seattle, and they were my friends from like high school. And he was working for Microsoft and he had really risen the ranks and he was making good money. And he said, and I'm sure people have heard this, you can't fly with the eagles if you're hanging out with the turkeys, right? And so, or the turkey vultures or something like that. And I was driving home from Seattle and that's all I could think about. And it was something that hung with me, and there's been other points in my life where I've had to make decisions and be like, this is not my circle of influence. This cannot be my circle of influence. I have to, you have to be in the room with the people that are more successful. You have to be the dumbest person in the room. You have to be the poorest person in the room so that you can continue to up level and be around these people who mirror it and make it look easy, right? Like, I'm sure you started there too. And you go to some mastermind and you're like, this guy sitting next to me has 5 businesses and makes $1 billion a year, and he's not that smart, but he's innovative and he's got this cool thing. So like, what's my innovative cool thing? And when it comes to health, our microbiomes are also very contagious, literally contagious. So if you're living with somebody who has type 2 diabetes, if you're living with somebody who has any number of diseases, we have data showing that is quite contagious. So you could very well end up with high blood pressure if they have high blood pressure. And I know it sounds crazy, but the actual microbiome will rub off. My buddy is a microbiome expert, and he was Karan Krishna, and you should have him on your show. He's brilliant. He was sharing that a study a few years ago where one person in the family took an antibiotic and the entire family's microbiome shifted within days. So communicable and non-communicable diseases, I think, are transferable via microbiome. And then also just health. Like, how do you stay motivated? Because it's discipline, not motivation. But if the person you're married to is not also disciplined, we have a problem, right? We have a mismatch. And so I think it's important. And your friend cohorts and the people you're eating food with and the food choices you're making and the how late are we staying up choices we're making and all the choices.
Well, it's fascinating because I didn't know from a health perspective that the science backs it. And that was fascinating. So I went down a little rabbit hole looking at some studies after I saw that quote from you. And what's fascinating is it's the same thing for productivity. So there's great studies that show that your productivity increases by about 15% if you sit in a 25 square foot radius of a high performer, and it decreases by about 30% if you sit next to a underperformer.
Wow.
So there's actually like, a asymmetric downside to it in some ways. And then the same thing is definitely true for money. So it seems that money is contagious as well. So is divorce, I saw.
Yeah.
Your likelihood of getting divorced increases if you are around people and quite close that get divorced.
There's even data that they don't talk about much anymore, but several years ago, before the healthy at every size movement really took hold. And I'm not saying that's a improper movement. I think it's more of a hypothesis. I do believe everybody should love their body at every size. I mean, disclaimer, it's just we also cannot glorify pathologic states of being, right? Um,
Yep.
but the data was going around before it was getting censored. And they showed in one study that if you have even 5 friends on the internet, just internet proximity, not in real person, who are struggling with obesity, your chances of becoming obese are exponentially higher. So I don't, it's not just microbiome, it's our brain's mirror, right?
Yeah.
Our mirror neurons in our brain. And who knows? But all that to say, I try to surround myself, and I'm not talking about leanness or fatness. It's not about that. It's about people who just take care of their health and prioritize their health, period, whatever size that comes in, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's important to me is like being around people who actually get it, who also prioritize it. Prioritizing it, I guess would be the word.
Well, yeah, it's kind of funny too, because these days, like if you say, nah, I'm not really drinking right now. No, I don't eat those types of food. No, I only do this. You're sort of criticized in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. But if you eat all the junk food, you do whatever you want, you don't work out, there's no criticism allowed. That's actually perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And
It's
so we've kind
weird.
of gone upsy, downsy, topsy turvy world.
Yes.
And we've lost our collective minds. And I think part of like what I've learned about getting fit is like, if you want to get fit, if you want to get financially free, you have to be okay setting boundaries for other people to stay out of if they are not going to help you progress.
Yep.
Because we are just not strong enough as individual willpowered beings to have willpower all the time against everything. So even if the science didn't show that it's literally not even up to you, it just transfers in your
Yeah.
microbiome. Even, willpower. I mean, think about it for a second. Am I going to be healthier at the end of the day if I'm hanging out with you and Gabrielle Lyon? You guys don't drink, you lift every single day, you eat real foods, you have healthy and happy marriages, you work on things that you love and care about. Is it going to be more likely that I will be more of those things because you are them and that's all I'm around? As opposed to if I'm hanging out with, like you talked about, the punk rockers that you're with back in the day, everybody's smoking, everybody's drinking.
Ooh.
It's just hard to stand against what the entire tribe's doing.
Yeah, my friends did not generally age well from that time period.
Yeah.
I quit smoking when I was 24. And I remember just like them calling me saying, "Where are you? You're not at the bar. You're not hanging out." And I'm like, "I can't hang out with you guys anymore. Like, I just can't hang out with you
Did
anymore."
you say that directly?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then when I got married, so I've been married 3 times, not successful in the first 2. When I married this husband, I literally, and some people will disagree with me, I cut off several of my male friends because they had shown interest in me in the past at some point, whether I'd been friends with them since we were like teenagers or not. And I was
Yeah.
like, I don't, I can't have any of those things in my life. Not when I
Yeah.
want this life. So I
100%.
cut people off, and maybe it's because I'm an Aquarius and I'm good at it. But if somebody's not showing that it's not that I need them to be doing the same thing as me or that I even need them to help me get somewhere. It's just we need to be in alignment as we move through life together. And the older I get, and you'll experience this too, your circle gets much tighter as you get older because you just have less tolerance for bullshit, period. And it's just easier to be like, yeah, there's nothing here. It's not that I need them to serve me, but it needs to be reciprocal. Something needs to be, an upside for me to stay in that friendship. And so I'm a big fan of just like, especially during COVID and those days, I was like, just, if these people are torturing you to do something you don't want to do or to participate in some grand experiment that you don't want to be a part of, then like, fuck them.
Yeah. Opt out. Opt
That's
out.
not that hard.
I love
These
that.
are not your friends, And
No.
my husband's made it really clear for me. I'll say, my friend, blah, blah, blah. And then this happened. He's like, that's not a friend. And so just learning what those definitions are. He's like, that might be an acquaintance, but that person definitely doesn't have your best interest at heart. I just read a study yesterday that women who encourage you to cut your hair off are actually and I didn't read the whole thing. I read the abstract. Basically, they are seeing you as competition in the mating world. So they are encouraging you to cut your hair off to be less valuable. Perceived as, so like basically it was like if your girlfriend's telling you to cut your hair off, she's not your friend kind of thing, which as a girl who spent her whole life with short hair, I'm like a short-haired girl by nature. I don't know if I entirely agree with that because like
Yeah.
I am in my power and sassy when I have short hair,
Yeah.
but there is that was an interesting take on it.
I actually agree with it. I don't even need to see the science on that. I think if somebody else is telling you to cut, well, especially if you're, if you're single, dudes just like chicks with long hair typically.
Yeah.
By and large,
Hair's
statistically.
a thing.
Yeah, it's just whatever. And so that's hysterical. So one great red flag for friends is, do they tell you to cut your hair or not?
Well, girls
and if
are
they
weird.
do,
Yeah, girls are weird. Girls don't, have you noticed that? It doesn't ever go away. Even if they're your best friend, there's
Yeah.
just this weird low key resource guard. I think we're evolutionary built, we're built for that. Women are built to resource guard because they're looking for the viable males in the population that will give them good offspring and also protect them. And there's less of those than there are women who are fertile. So I think it's just evolutionary that we.
Yeah. That actually tracks. It makes me feel a little bit better though. As I've gotten older, I've gotten a little bit more comfortable saying, like, I feel jealousy. That happened the other day. I have a wonderful friend, Vanessa Van Edwards, who's on the internet too. She's one of my dear friends. I adore her. And she's hyper talented. She's incredible. And she got this opportunity. And my immediate reaction was jealousy. It was like immediate. It wasn't, I was excited for her. It wasn't this, it was, fuck, really? Why'd she get that? Not me. And then I was like, ew, yuck,
Yeah.
gross. I hate that was my immediate reaction. And then, I thought about it. I'm like, why am I jealous of her? And I was like, well, because she's really in what I call like flow. Like she just, she's in this period in her life, which I have envy about, which is where like things come to her. She's kind of aligned things in her life how she wants it. And she's flowing. And some days I feel like I'm grinding.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's really an envy of like the decisions that she's made, some of the choices. And so I struggled with that for a minute. And then I called her and I was like, I have to tell you something weird. This happened to you. And I'm now very excited for you, but I was jealous at first. And I just wanted to tell you that like, I'm so happy for you. And I'm sorry I felt a moment of jealousy about that. And like, you're going to crush it. And it's going to be amazing. And now the story I'm telling myself is like, you doing that means that I get to do that more.
Right.
But I would feel like a weird friend if I didn't call you and say, ugh, I had this gnarly thing I felt. And now I'm trying to move through it. But I think it's also like acknowledging that we probably all get that. And I called another friend of mine, Kim, and told her about it. And she was like, Codie, every time I go into a bookstore and I see like my 5 friends who have best-selling books up there, I go, fuck, why didn't I write a book?
Yeah.
She goes, I feel that all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really nice that we're honest. Like you can be honest with your friends. I felt a little jealousy because that is so cool, that thing that you're doing. But you're right. It's probably actually genetic.
I think it's evolutionary.
It's evolutionary. That's the right
Yeah.
word.
I had a friend recently I was talking to, and I was telling her how completely dialed in I saw her business and how I was jealous, like straight up, like your landing pages are beautiful. Your copy's beautiful. Your ads are converting. Everything's so beautiful. And I'm over here like throwing shit at the wall, hoping it sticks. And sometimes it sticks and I make $1 million and sometimes it doesn't stick. And it's just, I just had an abysmal launch happen that did not convert. And I was like, I clearly missed the mark on that. And she just looked at me in shock and she's like, I've been so jealous of you all year. Like you're always on all these podcasts and you've been doing all this stuff. And I'm like, girl, it's wearing me out. Like being on planes and, and you're off in Aruba on vacation and like doing all this. You look great in a bikini and I'm over here with like cortisol puff, and so it's just one of those moments where we both just had the complete opposite read on, so.
But it helps when you say it out loud, which is in a weird way, less gossiping and more like, acknowledgement of a real feeling that is true and honest. And I think it's helpful when people hear people who are like kind of successful in one way or the other share it too, because they're like, oh, it's not just, so many times you listen to podcasts, you're like, they seem to have it figured out. Cool.
Yeah.
I'll just go, grab my bag of Cheetos and listen to Netflix and like, fuck this whole thing. So I like that we get to be honest about it.
I think it's the quote I heard I love is look for the expanders and then thank them. And so the minute I heard that, I immediately texted Gabrielle and I was like, thank you. Like I see her and I just think, oh, more is possible.
Yeah.
And I see you too. And I'm like, more is possible. Like there's levels to this video game. So it's just a matter. And you don't have to hit all the levels. And also there's seasons.
Yeah.
Right. And there's seasons to rest and there's seasons to pull back and there's seasons to push and grind. It's just like the gym. You can't grind all the time.
No.
And you can't go metabolic all the time. Like there has to be windows here.
100%. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is talking about other things that happen to women. And then I want to get to something that's applicable to everybody. But is there data that shows lately that it is harder for women to get pregnant than it has been before? Because it feels like that.
Our fertility rates are in the toilet. Yeah. we're in trouble. I think we're going extinct, honestly, as a species.
What's happening?
It's a lot of things. And I can't say with, certainty because that's not entirely my wheelhouse, but I was seeing it early on in practice. I got licensed in 2008 and I was seeing it in practice early. A lot of young women coming in having issues. The way it's handled is weird. They give you drugs to get your eggs to basically shoot out, or your ovaries to shoot out an egg. And there's a lot, if you look at animal husbandry, they really have an appreciation for like hypothyroidism being the cause of infertility, and low progesterone can be a contributor to holding on to that pregnancy. And so that is the way I've always approached it, is making sure just to optimize a woman's, get the toxins out of her life, get her moving, deal with her metabolic dysfunction, and then thyroid and progesterone. But I think we're in a whole different world now at this point with the intervention of 2021, I think is a potential factor. We have data on that. I'm not making it up. I'm not trying to fearmonger. And then we've got abysmal fertility in men. We've got, plummeting testosterone rates. So their swimmers are not swimming so well. And I think overarching is this metabolic dysfunction that I've been trying to beat the drum on for a long time. And it was not sexy. And thank God, Dr. Casey Means came out with her book and people are paying attention now. But I have been trying to get people. My mentor told me, keep your waist circumference in check at all costs and lift weights. Like, do not let the metabolic dysfunction get you. And we're seeing it in younger and younger and younger. I mean, children with severe metabolic dysfunction. And that does not bode well for fertility, because a body that is metabolically compromised is not going to want to reproduce.
Yeah.
So I think we're in a pickle. And then I'm hearing from my friends that are your age telling me that all their girlfriends are getting, IVF,
All of them.
which is crazy to me.
Yeah, I would say I have about 15% of my girlfriends who have done it naturally. Almost
Really?
everybody else, yeah, and maybe even 10% if you include like turkey basting or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
Is that the scientific term? I think so. So
Get it up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Lay back and get it done.
But
That's crazy.
yeah, and these are women, and not all of them are women who work, who might have like more stress. It's sort of across the gambit, and I would say from ages like 30 to, let's call it 41. I'm seeing all of them struggle with it by and large. I mean, I have a couple girlfriends that are on their, like their 7th, 8th, 9th IVF
Oh
round.
my God. And that does terrible things. That's the problem, is that hormonal load that these women go through is just wreaking havoc on their metabolic health. So they're becoming less and less and less fertile through the process of IVF.
Oof.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah, but the wild thing is that why don't doctors talk to women about that? Why do they just go, you can't get pregnant, your blood level's fine, the swimmers are fine-ish, whatever they think fine means by average today. They don't really check for thyroid stuff. They don't ask at all about what your health is otherwise. And then they just tell you, let's begin IVF. Why
Because
is
that's
that?
their hammer, and that hammer's profitable. It's their hammer, like every doctor is going to have their hammer. My hammer in my practice was needles. I was like, well, let's stick a needle in it. Let's see what can we change in the tissue? What can we change in your immune response if we inject it? Chiropractors adjust, naturopathic doctors give supplements, it's their hammer. And so orthopedists are going to do orthopedic surgery, and, rehab docs are going to rehab you all day. And I think we're seeing, actually, the cool part in the last 10 years is I'm seeing a lot less turf wars and a lot more doctors coming together, especially since 2020. It was very clear there was like team freedom and everything else. And so that's been very cool, because a lot of people have come over to the functional medicine side because they've seen, like, wait a minute, the system they lied to us. I'm like, welcome. They've been lying to us for a long time. Right. And so, like, it didn't, I knew 20 years ago that Big Pharma was quite corrupt. So over here, I think we started melding more, and I'm hoping that translates, but I don't know. I'm concerned. I think in most countries in the world, what I have seen is that there's not even a population being born to replace the population. So we are at a certain point, there's a critical point where there's of no return. And I think South Korea has definitely hit it. And there's other countries, and the US is on the precipice, but
Japan's approaching.
we're a train wreck of health here, and we have exported it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember when we all thought Elon was crazy because he said that we needed to increase the population control? And you probably didn't. You probably realized that was real. And now it's like, no, Elon was right. We should be having more babies. And actually, that we shouldn't be doing what the, World Health Organization was telling us, which was actually decrease population
Yeah.
size.
All my girlfriends who did not participate in the intervention of 2021 and seem to be having babies very easy. Like
Yeah.
all my closest girlfriends are breathing like it's every time I swear to God, they get out of that gauntlet of breastfeeding and everything. And all of a sudden they're like, Tina, I'm pregnant again. And they're all walking the walk, right? They're all living very
Yeah.
healthfully. I'm like, have as many babies as humanly possible. We need you. Like we need
Yeah.
that. That's what we need. Like the healthy, vital, natural, like keep going, if you're happy with it and you're having fun, keep going.
Well, you know what I like about you is you're honest about, corrupt practices in big pharma. You will say very head on that there were interventions you didn't like in medicine that you thought were systematically wrong, even, and that you think that there's a massive fertility crisis as engineered, maybe by the external environment, but also how doctors are handling it. But then you also have some really interesting take on GLP-1s, or as many people know it as, Ozempic. And so, what is your take on this drug or series of drugs? Are they bad? Are they good?
So they're peptides. And when I realized that they were peptides, I immediately got more intrigued because a peptide is just a string of amino acids. And you were saying your husband likes peptides. A lot of people you really can't age into middle age and be active and fit and not at some point come around to peptides
Mm,
because you end up in pain and you
yep,
end up
that's
with
true.
injuries, right?
Yeah.
And so the peptide community is really expanding. I think we're finding ease of execution with a lot of these oral forms of different peptides, BPC 157, TB 500, these, Wolverine peptides. There's all kinds of different peptides out there. And peptides by nature insert themselves, they're just strings of amino acids that are peptide bound together to make peptides. And then strings of peptides are just proteins.
Hmm.
That's the complexity of it. That's where it gets. And so peptides insert themselves where they need to go and they do their magic. Um, it just so happens that these peptides are over here in the big pharma bucket. I think it's because of the way that they are administered, injection wise. And so I started researching them because it was, when was it? A couple summers ago. And there was just spring, summer. It was everywhere I looked. There was so much hype about it. And the weirdest part was the entire functional medicine community it was all sounding very propagandized. Like in 2020, immediately my ears perked up and I'm like, this sounds like propaganda.
Mhm.
And indeed, here we are. So it was the same kind of thing. This clickbaity nonsense I was seeing mainstream media. And then I was hearing the functional medicine and the medical freedom community also preaching the same message. Like, when do those two align?
Yeah.
That was weird. So immediately I was like, this smells sus. So I start looking into it and I find stacks of data showing from tip to toe really amazing regenerative healing and anti-inflammatory properties, really potent anti-inflammatory properties to these peptides.
Wow.
They're not just working by decreasing your, stomach motility. They're not just making you feel fuller longer. They're not just shutting down your appetite in your brain. They're not that's not where it ends. They actually are healing metabolic pathways, which the crux, in my opinion, the crux of most modern diseases is metabolic dysfunction. And we are all to some degree. I mean, if 94% of US adults are metabolically compromised, then that's 94% of your listeners.
Yeah.
Maybe yours are a bit better because, maybe our listeners of our pods are more educated, but generally speaking. And so I don't know what I think part of it was just me being I tried to make a podcast about it and come out and talk about it. And the pushback I got was so fierce and ferocious. And it was very reminiscent of 2020 when I was telling people to eat meat, go outside, lift weights. You don't need to be a sitting duck.
Mhm.
Like viruses aren't, there's a high, success rate of getting through all of these things if you go into it with good metabolic health and you start taking and even small steps today will translate into more potent and robust immune response. And it was very much like that. And I was like, this is weird. Even the bots, I was getting the same kind of bot. You've probably gotten a lot of bot messages. You know them when you see them, right? And you go look at the profile and you're like, this is a bot. So I'm getting this parroted response. Just eat less and move more. Just eat less and move more. And I'm like, no, I didn't mention weight loss. I was talking about Parkinson's. No, I didn't mention weight loss. I was sharing a study about this. And they just kept coming in. The functional medicine community got pissed at me. I went on Dr. Mark Hyman's podcast to debate Callie Means. He wouldn't listen. He was yelling over the top of me. It was very, very polarized of a topic. And I was like, what have I stumbled into here? And I'm so insubordinate. I just kept pushing. The more they push back on me, the more I'm just like that. I'm like, oh, you want to go? I'll go. Okay. So, and I will go all, like, my favorite game is just obliterating people with data. So I'm like, oh, I got mountains over here and I can quote them. And I don't mean to be, that's not
No,
probably,
I love this.
That's
about
probably my
you.
pathology.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Let's go.
But it's like, all right, let's go. And the more I pushed forward, I got a lot of heat, but I started getting people listening, and then I started, I've got I don't have a following your size, but I have a decent size following.
Yeah.
And I started getting hundreds and now thousands of messages from people saying, thank you so much. These peptides have changed my life completely. And I have been living in so much shame. I can't talk about it with my family. People who really did need it for type 2 diabetes, metabolic dysfunction, weight loss, which was not the conversation I was trying to have. I was trying to share out the neuroregenerative, the cardiovascular, all of the other benefits in the different organ systems that I was seeing, but everybody wanted to talk about weight loss. And these folks were messaging me saying, I was terrified. So-and-so terrified me. So-and-so influencer terrified me. The media terrified me. My doctor's been trying to get me to go on it. I finally did. And oh my gosh, my life has changed. And oh my gosh, I'm fertile now. And oh my gosh, my depression is gone. And oh my gosh, all my pain is gone. And oh my gosh, this one woman messaged me, this wonderful message, older woman who had her metabolic health completely obliterated by chemotherapy treatment and cancer treatment. And she's in her 60s. And the weight gain was putting her at higher risk for the cancer coming back, right?
Mhm.
Because obesity is a standalone risk factor for multiple types of cancer.
Yep.
And she said, you keep going. Like, this was early on. She's like, you keep going because I went on these and here's my story. And so, one woman messages me and says, finally could go on rides at Disneyland with my kids. And so I wasn't trying to be the weight loss warrior for GLP-1s. I wasn't trying to defend Ozempic for weight loss, but it's turned into that on a lot of these podcasts because some of these hosts really that's the conversation they want to have. But I think at the end of the day, there is nuance. Oh, and the best part, the part that really got me intrigued, besides the neuroregenerative and anti-inflammatory impacts on the brain and its impacts on pain and its impacts on our immune system, and the protective, when I started talking about the data that I found from 2021 on the protective mechanism of semaglutide against COVID, I got deplatformed at 232,000 off Instagram. And there's data that came out last year showing it's correlative, it's not causative, but showing potential protective benefit against cancer. This is all data that's published. And things got a little heated at that point. I think I got in the crosshairs of Big Pharma. I don't know. But all of this to say, I think there's extreme potential for alcohol abuse syndrome, addiction, anything that's going off that dopamine dragon, as I call it. Those dopaminergic pathways are impacted. And we've now got all the data to support everything I was either had found or was speculating or had only had animal data on. We now have human data on most of it. And I just think there's a place for them. And I think that they need to be done appropriately like any other peptide. And I don't think it's a monotherapy, like take high doses, good luck. I think obviously lifestyle is always number one. And I've been preaching metabolic health since day one. So I don't know how that message has gotten skewed. I'm not a big pharma shill. I may go to the fucking gym and eat enough protein and get your shit together person. And then we have tools.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use all the tools that I want to use that I have accessible to me. And I can prescribe in Oregon. So I'm going to use my prescription abilities. We have no problem. I was thinking about it in the shower this morning. Like, somebody in the Maha movement was saying something about how they prefer food over big pharma. And I was like, this is really choice coming from, I'm not bashing the Maha movement. It's a generalized statement I'm making. It's really choice to me that people are okay with having their, thyroid hormone compounded or their hormone replacement, or because I could make an argument that most hormonal issues, aside from ovarian failure at menopause, most hormonal issues are lifestyle. in nature. Like we burn out our thyroids, we burn out our hormones and when we're younger. And I could also make an argument that folks' need for high blood pressure medication and statins are also lifestyle. I could make those arguments all day, but we don't vilify those people.
Yeah.
And then my best part was last night, I see a huge influencer who has been bashing on a doctor who's been bashing on GLP-1s and Ozempic for a year on every podcast he could get on himself on. And then he does a freaking reel on the benefits of BPC 157 because you can buy it in a pill and he can sell it to you.
Oh, I saw that one actually.
And I'm like, really? I
Yeah.
commented on it. I'm like, that's interesting. Because I know of a peptide that you've been bashing on that's also anti-inflammatory, healing, and regenerative.
Yeah.
But that one's not okay. It doesn't fit the storyline.
Well, I think that's the interesting part. It's like when we become these like mono thinking individuals where we label ourselves anything, whether it's Maha or whether it's pharma or whether, and we cannot deviate from our cultural group, I think we get into a big problem.
It's huge.
And so I never really trust someone who hasn't pushed back against not only the other side, but their side, because you have to be willing to do both in order to have like a reasonable, rational debate. Now, when you got deplatformed, why do you think that happened? Like,
Well, that was the month that Eli Lilly released their vials. So they had Zepbound is the brand name for so we've got semaglutide, which is made by Novo Nordisk, and semaglutide comes in Ozempic or Wegovy.
yeah,
Ozempic is FDA approved for type 2. Wegovy is approved for weight loss. On the Eli Lilly side, we have Mounjaro, and that would be Mounjaro is for type 2 FDA approved, and Zepbound is their version. Same thing, same peptides. They're just, well, these two are different, but you get what I'm saying.
yeah.
They're just approved for different things. They came out with their vials that month, actually that week, I think. And they had sent a lot of cease and desist letters to the telemedicine companies, the compounding pharmacists, the many doctors who were prescribing compounded. They really have, and Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly have been pushing very hard against the compounded. And at that time, I have been proposing microdoses or
Yeah.
a more personalized dosing strategy, I think would be a better term. And meaning that the starting dose, even if you're dealing with type 2 diabetes or obesity, and that's what you're using it for, I think the starting dose in many cases can be too high and non-tolerable to many people. And so if you do want to escalate somebody up to those therapeutic doses, then consider, big pharma, consider a lower dose. People shouldn't have to lay on the couch for a month vomiting profusely
Exactly.
to onboard a medication or a peptide, right? But on the other side, I was talking about using very potentially, like for someone like yourself, who's metabolically very optimized, you lift weights, you do all the things, right? You get your sleep, you get your protein in, you do all the things. If you were coming to me saying, I've got this neurologic issue, or I've got any number of things, PCOS, fertility issues, we are allowed to use things off label. And so in those cases, my husband has high blood pressure and he's got cardiovascular disease in his family. So in those cases, we would use these peptides potentially preventatively or in very minuscule doses because you would not tolerate usually anywhere near the standard starting dose. And anyway, all that to say, that week, everybody was getting letters and I got deplatformed. So I speculate. I do not know. I don't have any proof, but I speculate I kind of got caught up in the crosshairs there, I think.
Yeah.
Because I did have a girlfriend who has a decent size account who comes out and says she tells you how to dose, where to get it, not even prescription. Like she's making claims that I think were way riskier than anything I would ever say publicly or even on the internet for that matter. And she got suspended that week as well, her account. And when she was allowed to appeal, I was not. And when she appealed, she was allowed to find out who reported her, and it was Eli Lilly. And it was the day after my account went down.
I didn't know you could do that.
Well, they didn't give me any option. I was just gone.
Interesting. I got a guy next time if anything happens to you.
I literally asked everyone I knew. I'm like, somebody has to know someone at Meta. You know who I think knew someone at Meta? I think it might have been Jen Cohen. I don't know if you know Jen Cohen, but she's a cool chick too.
Yeah.
And I owe her a lot, I think. Anyway, that was all crazy. It's crazy.
So basically, to understand, they don't want you recommending these non-prescription. It's like a white label versus their Eli Lilly label. And so they're basically saying you can't do this other thing over here that's not ours.
I don't think they want compounding pharmacies. And I never really was. It's like however you can access it. In fact, there's a paper that came out
because compounding pharmacies don't use Eli Lilly's formula.
Yes,
so they don't
correct.
have to pay them licensing.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
And so,
correct.
because if I understand this correct, like what do they have that is patented in this? Like what are compounders not allowed to use or allowed to use?
I don't know all the details. I know that there's 503A and 503B in the compounding world. And I'm not a compounding pharmacist, so I'm not an expert in this, but there is a clause that came into being in the early 2000s or 2000s and teens. Yeah, it was like 2013, I think. It was when I was in practice that compounding pharmacists could fill the need on a shortage.
Interesting.
And that's a 503B. And I don't know if those are more identical to the brand name or not, but these two peptides have been in shortage for a long time. And so 503B compounding pharmacies were filling that need. And now there's a big lawsuits going on because supposedly they're out of shortage, and it's a whole thing. I don't pretend to follow it all completely, or understand it all. But now it's going to go back to 503A, which is less. There's less oversight on 503A. So them pushing against this compounding, it might be pushing it into even a less, you know, I don't want to say
Regulated?
less safe.
Yeah.
That's not the right word, but there's going to be even less oversight on how these are manufactured in different pharmacies than they were before. So I don't know. I'm trying to stay out of the whole mess. I was really excited this last month, or in March actually. An article came out in the Journal of Diabetes showing that you could actually take the pens, because this is the big thing. The brand names are in pens and they're pre-filled, they're pre-dosed.
Oh, so you can't change the dose.
Yes, that's the problem. I should have said that early on. The compounding come in vials and you can pull up what you want. So you can
Yeah.
have a more personalized approach. So the pens, though, this paper was published and they were talking about using it in smaller doses. They called, it's like microdosing has made it mainstream, and I'm nowhere in the conversation, but that's okay. I'm not talking about it for weight loss. I'm trying to talk about it for other things. But they came out with this paper showing microdosing for type 2 diabetes. You can start people at a lower dose, and you can actually use this pen click method with the brand name pens. So that should make Big Pharma happy because their product is still being used.
Yep.
But depending on how, and they have a whole chart in the study. Anyone can go look it up. I can give you the link to put in the show notes. There's a whole
Great.
chart on how to use the pen click method to get the appropriate dosage if somebody can't tolerate the dose or if somebody needs something more personalized.
Yeah, which is brilliant because I have some friends that, by all intents and practices, they probably did need help from some sort of GLP-1, I guess they're called.
Yeah.
And so, but they got so sick
Yeah.
from the first usage that yes, they started losing weight. But if we already think that GLP-1s might cause some lean muscle mass, and then they're so sick they can't function or weight lift or do anything else,
Yeah.
that's got to exacerbate it.
Yeah. It's
right?
not good.
Interesting. So are these things then something that you get stuck on for life? Like, does this become another type of just lifetime drug that's great for pharmaceuticals and not great for individuals?
That's a good question. And I think that people don't understand the functional medicine approach versus the allopathic approach. In allopathic medicine, you have a condition. The standard of care is to prescribe X, Y, or Z drugs for said condition. This is why doctors aren't MDs traditionally trained are not keen on running a bunch of functional lab tests because they're responsible legally for whatever comes up on that lab result. Okay, so they need to prescribe based on standard of care, whatever drug is appropriate that has been deemed the standard of care. You show up with high blood pressure, they must put you on a blood pressure medication.
Wow.
If they're going to go, it depends on what state they're in because some boards are a little, more rigorous than others. But like in Oregon, for instance, MDs don't do well prescribing desiccated thyroid, which is a prescription, but naturopathic doctors can. MDs don't prescribe ivermectin for COVID, but naturopathic doctors could because naturopathic doctors, we are not under standard of care. We're under best practices. There is a standard. We can't go rogue and do random shit, but we actually have to know more. We have to know what the standard of care is. We have to present it to the patient, and then we have to present them all our alternatives, which are the other options that we would bring to the table. So anyway, all that to say, the way that I do things with peptides in general is I cycle them. We cycle them. We go on and off of them. We use them as a tool for a time. I do that with drugs too, though, like Prozac, for instance. It was never studied long-term for depression. It was studied to be implemented as basically like an emergency shoot when you're going through a terrible time period. You use it during a window. Maybe you have a divorce or a death in the family and you're devastated. These are window, and I like to think of most drugs as like hormones. we generally tend to need to stay on, but I cycle those too. So I think it depends on the individual. I think there are people living with I do believe there is a disease of obesity. I don't think every obese person has the disease, and I don't think everybody with the disease is obese. But I do think there is the disease of obesity, and I do think that for some of those folks, yes. But I don't think that anybody even has the right to start a GLP-1 if they also aren't going to the gym and lifting weights. And they're not also hitting their macros, their protein macros. So my argument from day one has been, it's not the peptide's fault. It's a dosing and management issue.
Yeah.
Like, and I hate to diss on the doctors because we all went to medical school and racked up tremendous, huge bills, not because we were waiting to get rich. There are not rich doctors. Do you know any rich doctors?
No,
There might be
compounding pharmacy owners, some of them.
Yeah, but there's a few like plastic surgeons, et cetera, that are doing well,
sure.
but most people don't go into medicine to they're not greedy assholes. We don't
No.
give up a huge chunk of our life.
No, you can't get rich quick either at it.
Yes,
You could get rich
exactly.
very, very slowly
Slowly.
over decades.
Right. So anyway, all that to say, people seem to think that the greedy doctors, so I hate to throw them under the bus, but many of them are getting into areas that maybe aren't their strongest wheelhouse. And so they know nothing about how to manage or help somebody with metabolic dysfunction. And yet they're throwing peptides at them, and they're doing what the studies tell them to escalate the dose quickly and aggressively. And so these people are getting put on these high doses very quickly, which I think at the end of the day is going to be catastrophic because the muscle loss, and I've said this in the past, I want to add something here. Yes, when you put anybody on a low calorie diet and you severely calorically restrict, or you do gastric bypass and you malnourish them, basically, they're going to have lean mass loss. And it's on par with the percentage. It's the same. I will say, though, these peptides, these GLP-1s, they rev that AMPK pathway, which I said earlier is catabolic. So I think at the end of the day, these folks that are on high doses that are doing nothing else and are not doing any lifestyle changes are going to find themselves perpetually on them for the rest of their life. And if they ever go off of them, they are now like melted candles. Oof. They've got very severe wasting that has occurred throughout their lean tissue, and including their muscle mass, which is your metabolic engine. And it's a disaster. And now they're sitting in a very brittle diabetic state so they're masking and they're, dare I say, overdosing, but that might be the problem.
Interesting.
I don't know if that answers the question.
It does, and opens up so many more. Am I dumb for not knowing that standard of care meant that doctors really have to do it this way, or they basically open themselves up to risk?
Yes,
is the way that I
that's
take
correct.
that. Is that like common knowledge?
No.
And so, because I often think with doctors, and to your point, I'm giving them a hard time. Like, I'm like, why don't you tell people to eat healthier? Like, why are you putting my dad on this blood pressure medicine nonstop for 40 years and he has a big tummy, and not telling him, like, stop with, he loves Mexican food, like, stop with this, get to the gym, you need to be lifting more. Why does that never come up? But I think it makes a lot of sense if actually there is a perverse incentive for them, and it's not even the doctor's fault. It's not that they want to get a kickback from a drug company all the time.
There's no kick there. And that's the other thing. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I was in practice for 10 years in a big clinical setting, and nobody came knocking with a check when I wrote a prescription. There's no, there might be companies that are courting doctors, maybe sending them on trips, and they have to disclose this too. You can legally look that up, but it's not like you write a prescription and you get that's not, and maybe there's some off record deals going on. I don't know about, but no. And also they are time constrained. So if they're back in 1995, when I was working at a hospital in Portland, I was an undergrad, I wanted to be a doctor. And this is why I went ND instead of MD route. Cause this MD came in and he was a neurologist, and we were in the Alzheimer's and dementia clinic doing research. And he said that at that time in 95, if he spent more than 7 minutes in a room with a patient, he was losing money. So they can't tell your dad how to eat right. And they're not lifting themselves. They're train wrecks. Yeah. Most doctors have fatty liver themselves. So they tell you, oh, your labs are normal. You have some fatty liver. That's okay. It's like, no, it's not okay. Your liver is literally going to be cirrhotic in 10, 20 years. Like, this is maybe a little longer, depends on the person and how much alcohol they're drinking. But it's just bizarro land to me that we've got, mediocre health folks, but to their defense, their lives are incredibly stressful. Yep. So there's a lot going up against doctors, and we really do trash on them way too often. And I don't love it. they're wheels in a car or whatever the term is,
Cogs in a wheel.
yeah, they're
Yep.
just in a system that is, I believe, quite corrupt and
Yeah.
misguided.
Well, it's interesting. It's close to my heart right now because my brother has just really been struggling with, he got his gallbladder out when he was like 13 or something. And he had like cyclical vomiting syndrome
Oh no.
and has had all of these health issues. But the answer from a lot of medical professionals has been, all right, let's put you on anti-anxiety medication. Let's put you on an antidepressant. Are you depressed? Let's do this. And I'm like, I just watched the kid drink a Arnold Palmer with half lemonade in it and eat a big thing of meatloaf. Like, could we stop? If he already can't process stuff, if his gut is messed up, if he's vomiting all the time, should we start with something else? And, and then, kind of telling him that didn't matter if he drank sometimes.
Yeah.
And, and at some point I really feel for like the families and everybody involved, because you get to a certain point too with him where I'm like, bud, you're a grown man. This is your path.
Yeah.
You're going to have to figure it out. And I'm here to support you if and when you're ready to listen. But I can't fucking tell you the same thing anymore. And so I bet doctors often are like, listen, I've been telling you to also work out for 72
Yeah.
years. You haven't been. So here's the blood pressure medication so you don't actually die.
Yes.
But also, could you do the other things too?
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of that going on,
Yeah.
but probably, not a lot of us always listen to the doctor.
And it takes time. Patients can get hostile and aggressive. And even people were coming to me as a naturopathic physician in a cash-based practice. I did not take insurance. So they knew exactly what they were getting into. Like they sought me out specifically for that in
Yeah.
a town where all the NDs take insurance. And they still would fight me tooth and nail.
Interesting.
And they would get mad at me, hostile, angry if their labs showed up all of a sudden they're diabetic. And I'm like, dude, I've been telling you for 10 years what was coming. And then suddenly here it is. And like grown men getting up out of their chair yelling at me, terrifying me
Wow.
because they're so mad. Like it's crazy. Medicine's crazy. It's why I shut my practice down. Like I take clients and patients very rarely these days because it's just, you go in circles. It's online's one thing. I'm beating the drum constantly, repeating myself like a
Yeah.
robot because I'm trying to get it to land and I'm trying to find new ways to say it so it'll land. And that's frustrating enough because then you're
Yeah.
just dealing with, ignorant trolls. But in clinical practice, when someone's paying you a clip of money,
Yeah.
you're not the cheapest doc in town and they're still yelling at you when you're telling them
Yeah.
to go to the gym. And, it's tough. It's a tough gig. But for your brother's sake, some digestive enzymes, some ox bile, and
That's what I told him.
some HCl would go a long way.
HCl. You know what? Gabrielle
Ox
Lyons said
bile.
ox bile too. And I
Yeah.
told him and he said it sounded gross. And so we're working with him on that. I'm like, it's a pill.
Does he
You
like-
don't taste anything?
Does he like carnivore stuff? Does he like that scene at all?
You know what? I think at this point,
'Cause there's-
sadly, he's at that point where, when you just don't have any other options and your health has gotten to a level where it is the only thing that matters and you
Yeah.
realize that everybody else can have 100 problems, but you only got one. That's where he's at.
Yeah.
And so with him right now, it's really, all right, man, like this is your moment. And it's a bummer that I haven't known how to get through to him prior to this. But I think he is at that moment where he's willing to listen. And so, I'd be curious your take too. How, have you found, like, if somebody is at that point where they're like, God, I'm here and it's hard and I know I have to make massive health changes, what would you tell them? How do you get somebody to even start truly prioritizing their health when they realize that they have no other choice but to?
It comes down to pain and vanity or vanity. So when people hit a wall on one of those, they usually will be, I've had to multiple times. I recently got back some very concerning labs. I knew I was burning the candle at all ends and I was like, I'm fine, I'll be okay. And then I get my labs back and I'm like, oh, my thyroid's on fire. It's not okay, right? I've got to make some severe changes. I've got to
Yeah.
restructure my business and restructure my life. It's one step at a time. I really do think the answer's in the gym, though. I think the ritual of committing to that process of going 3 days a week, it doesn't have to be 5 days a week. It's just, I lift 3 days a week. Going to the gym at a scheduled time or hiring that trainer if you can. I think that's great money invested if you can hire a personal trainer who knows what they're doing, and committing to that process, because that process begets the other processes. So when you're training, you will automatically start to reprioritize what you put in your mouth because you work too hard in the gym to sacrifice and ruin the opportunity for that muscle protein synthesis. So you're like, I'm going to eat better. You hydrate more. You're tired, so you go to bed. You start to make these incremental changes around the one goal of building muscle. And so if getting stronger is the goal physically, and maybe vanity is what's driving it, maybe pain's driving it, but either way, you're not going to get out of here alive or in very good shape if you don't have muscle. So if that becomes, I joke, like the answer's in the gym and on your plate. Stage 1, like that's it. My mom to this day, every time she asks, I have a friend who has this whatever condition. I'm like, Mom, what has my answer been for 20 years? Eat more meat and lift weights. I'm like, yes, Mom. Tell 85-year-old Peggy to eat more meat and lift weights. She will feel better.
Why do you think we don't listen to that?
It's too easy. They want sexy. They want the GLP-1.
Yeah.
I mean, I came out gunning on GLP-1s, and it wasn't that I was trying to promote GLP-1s. I was trying to promote metabolic health. And I was like, hey guys, we have something that might help. Because even with my best intentions at 50 years old, my metabolic health was starting to become compromised because of chronic stress. There's not much I can do outside. I'm doing the gym, I'm doing the food, I'm doing all the things. And I was starting to have that 15, 20 pounds here. So I found a peptide that can help, and it also helps with my autoimmune disease, and it also helps with my brain fog, and it helps with my mood. Anyway, all that to say, I was just putting lipstick on a pig. I was still trying to promote the message of metabolic health, which is all the things, which I know feels daunting for someone like your brother, but just even prioritizing what goes in his mouth.
Yeah.
Because this is the direct route to the shoot.
Yeah.
Like it's like putting something inflammatory on an open wound. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
You wouldn't put acid or salt. I mean, maybe salt will dry it out, but you wouldn't put acid on your open wound. And yet when we have gastrointestinal issues, we're continuing to crush Chick-fil-A and wonder what the heck's going wrong, right? Like so that he has to hit a wall. It has to get really uncomfortable for him.
Yeah.
And then he'll just inherently know what to do because we have instincts, and humans have instincts that tell them what's right and wrong. It's just a matter of like, the other night I was like, damn it, I can't eat corn. I know I can't eat corn. And those damn masa chips, have you tried those?
Yeah, they're delicious.
They sent me like a whole package, and I started crushing them, and I'm getting puffy and bloated. And that's right when I ran my labs, and all my inflammatory markers are elevated, like just barely.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's the freaking corn chips I've been feasting on. I can't. And my daughter's like, Mom, we can't eat corn. Corn makes me break out. It makes you crazy. And I was like, I know,
makes you crazy.
But they were so yummy.
Well, I think that is the process. It's also, I mean, I always thought it was a little crazy in the beginning when some of the presidents would talk about how they just wear the same thing every day, and they lay it out at the end of the day, and they would put it on in the morning, because I think this thing of decision fatigue is so real. And so even a doctor who knows all the reasons why not to do something specifically for your body, at the end of the day, you're tired, you're hungry, you don't have any willpower left, and the decision fatigue kicks in. And I think, it's a good reminder in being human. Maybe my last question for you is, I think there's probably a lot of people out there too, who, like, you're listening right now and you recognize your family member sounds like my brother, or it sounds like, some of your patients. How do you support somebody when you don't want, how do you support somebody when you want them to be healthier than they are willing to want for themselves?
All you can do is model it.
Mm.
I really have firmly come to that conclusion, because I have family members too. People don't believe me, but I have very close family members who you wouldn't believe the health issues they have that are so solvable with lifestyle, and they just won't listen to me. They only come to me when there's an emergency.
Yeah.
And then I have to bail them out. And then I'm pissed because I'm like, if you had been doing any of the things I had been telling you to do, we wouldn't be in this position right now.
Yeah.
So the best that I can do, I've realized, is just to model it.
Yeah.
And to live it, because the only way out is through. No one's coming to save you. The government's not going to save you. Your mom's not going to save you. Your sister's not going to save you. Your doctor's not going to save you. Truly, like, if you're not putting in the work, especially as we age, especially as that wiggle room becomes less and less and less, and the faults become glaring. Like, the diabetes isn't just mild blood sugar dysregulation anymore. It becomes full bore. Now you've got all this other shit to deal with. You can't pull people out of that.
Yeah.
You couldn't even pull your husband out of that. I mean, without threat of divorce, sometimes people are struggling. So model it, walk the talk, be the person, and hopefully they'll come around.
And do some fucking deadlifts.
It solves a lot of problems.
I know what I'm doing tonight. I don't know about anybody else, but I only deadlift from here on out, basically. I do love the feeling of a deadlift though. Even like, if I don't go that heavy and I
Oh
do
yeah.
like handheld weights, little barbell deadlift.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm into it. So I agree. Okay. The last thing I wanted to leave with here is, you know, our audience has a ton of like high performers in it. So like people who just want their life to be better. They want to hit their peak performance. They're listening and wondering like, what's that like little extra that I should do too? We've talked about a lot of chronic disease, but where would you leave people with if they're already like, I'm doing pretty good. Like I'm crushing it over here. What studies have you seen or what information would you give to somebody who is out there like, I just want to be even better than I am today?
The two biggest things because that's been predominantly my patient base. The two biggest things would be number one, keep an eye on your hormones and get them handled before you think you need to. And that is different for everyone. That might be in your 30s, that might be in your 40s, but find somebody who's hormone literate and get that handled before you think you need to, because when it creeps up onto you, it's pretty subtle until you fall off the cliff. And it could be something like COVID or a big stressor or something that throws you off the cliff. And so having that dialed in, I think, is the ticket. I've been on hormones since my 30s. And when people say, you look great, I'm like, I shouldn't look great. I mean, I shared with you how unhealthy I was when I was a teen, but I think the hormones since the 30s have been, little bits here and there. I love the peptides for that as well. So become peptide literate.
Yeah.
Educate yourself as best you can, because you're only going to get so far with any practitioner. So you need to have a basic handle on nutrition and fitness. Like that's a skill you need to learn, is how to navigate the gym. And then I think the last thing is really watching your stress, because stress will erode all your best efforts despite how much intention you're putting into all of the good things. Stress will destroy your metabolism. It will destroy your beauty. I don't drink. I drink very rarely now. And somebody asked me the other day, she said, why'd you quit drinking? I'm like, because it makes me ugly. So vanity has been vanity and pain. I live with a lot of chronic pain too. So I think it's just navigating your life, because what I see happen is these folks get to their mid to late 40s and then all of a sudden the wheels start falling off the car. And if they don't go into that with muscle and they don't go into that with some semblance of decent eating habits, it can happen very quickly. And so that's that miracle spot of like 45 to 50, do not fuck around. Start getting serious about, we got to let some things go. We got to reprioritize. But if you want good, I think, good erectile function is key. Good libido, good sleep habits. Those are markers for good health. If your sleep starts falling apart as a woman, if your libido completely bottoms out, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Go get yourself handled.
Where are all the best places to follow Dr. Tina?
So I have a podcast. I would love for you to come on.
Love it.
Actually.
Love to.
Yeah, I have a great podcast I love doing. I'm on Instagram.
What is the podcast called?
It's called The Dr. Tina Show. Very original. DRTYNA. If you go to my website, drtina.com, I've got a free 4-part video series all about GLP-1s done right, where I dive deep into each video and I give you the science on a whole different story you probably haven't heard, which I think everybody should listen to, because you will end up with someone you love on these peptides. So you might as well become literate on it. I have a bigger course if people are interested, especially healthcare practitioners. And then I think I'm mostly on Instagram.
Yeah, I like your Instagram videos. I was just going through them yesterday.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? It's perfectly tailored, bite-sized pieces of information, exactly what you need, nothing that you don't. And for somebody like myself in health, that's what I can handle. That's my microdosing of, information for help. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So fun.
So now you can read your letter to your young self.
It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. Okay. Dear Tina, I'm going to cry. Does everyone cry when they do this?
I cried when I did it.
Don't stress so much. Don't starve yourself so much of like everything. Do find the gym and learn to use it as therapy. Do seek joy as often as possible. Life is short. YOLO. Love, Tina.
Oh, I like her too. Thank you so much. We're going to do something cool with this for you too.
Okay. Now you made me cry.
No, well, thank you for sharing. Again, it's a reminder, like, man, we got to have so much love for those younger versions of us, and we don't do it enough.
Oh, I just turned 51 and I was like, I have been grinding for so long. I have not had nearly the amount of fun that I should have had. Like I don't have as many years in front of me as I have behind me, maybe. And I need to have some fun. Like there was just stress and work and grind and stress and work. And I was like, that's not going to get me anywhere.
No.
It's done. Like I have to actually learn to shut off and enjoy what I built.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like that's the next evolution.
Yeah.
So next time you come back on the podcast, I'm going to have to bother you about what fun you've had. And
Hold me
tell your
accountable.
husband. I'm going to hold him accountable too.
Yes.
Dr. Tina, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
If you liked this podcast today, do me a favor, like and subscribe. It turns out that even though some of you come back and listen every single week, more than 60% of you aren't subscribed, which means that we don't get to be best buds on the internet, learning more from one another about the things that you care about every single day. So I would love for you to be along on our ride, like and subscribe for the channel. That is how we continue to get bigger and better guests for you. Also, leave me a comment about who you want to have on here next. I read every single one of them. Until next week, guys.